Okay, we're just taking a brief intermission while we fix the sound. You can hear me?
I heard you on YouTube.
Okay. Wait, hang on. Okay, it's fixed. Would you like to continue, Ms. Taylor?
Thank you, Heather.
Do you want me to start over, or?
No, right where you left off.
Good? It's not on here. Okay, as I was saying, the master plan designation for this site is suburban mixed use, which is consistent with the overall area. Listed on the screen are a few master plan policies that are supported by this project. Here you can see an aerial view of the site, which is highlighted in yellow in the center. To the west is the child care center that I mentioned earlier. Above that is Moana Nursery. To the north along Moana Lane are a few commercial centers. These centers have a variety of uses, including restaurants, hair salons, dry cleaners, a veterinary hospital, and retail businesses. To the east and south are professional office complexes. The nearest residential use is on the bottom right-hand side of this image. The distance from the convenience store to the western property line is over 300 feet. And it is not anticipated that this request will be detrimental to any of the residential zoning districts in the area. Staff received public comment with concerns regarding safety of the site and surrounding area during the extended hours if this request were to be approved. To relieve these concerns, staff is proposing conditions to ensure the safety and security of employees and customers of the site during the overnight hours. Condition number 6 requires that the back door is locked between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. Condition number 7 requires that the existing security cameras are in good working order and are continuously running and maintained. Conditions number 8, 9, 10, and 11 require additional security measures based on crime prevention through environmental design standards. These include a height marker on the exit door, an indicator on the door that alerts customers and employees of when another patron enters or exits, a sign stating the premise is under video surveillance, and placing a limit on the amount of window area that may be covered by signs or displays. These additional conditions will further promote public safety during the extended hours of operation. On the screen here are the required findings for a conditional use permit. Staff believes all findings can be met and recommends approval subject to the conditions listed in the staff report. Here is the recommended motion, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Heather. Appreciate it. Now I'll get a presentation from the applicant's representative.
Good evening, Derek Wilson on behalf of the property owner. Heather has done a very thorough job of reviewing this and presenting it, so I'll do my best to not waste anyone's time and repeat anything. Important elements are, this is an easy way to add some additional services to the neighborhood in a very low impact way. So no new construction required, no changes to the site layout. It's already a modern, good looking site. One comment about that residential zoning, that daycare center, that site has never been residential. It was built almost 30 years ago as a commercial operation. So it's a commercial building, commercial construction. It's got a parking lot out front. Basically zero chance that this is ever going to become a house. So I don't think that residential impacts are an issue. Other than that, I think you've been given a good picture of it, and I can wrap things up just by saying that the owner has experience with this kind of business. They run a clean operation. They know what they're doing, and I expect they'll do the same with this site. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Derek. Appreciate it. All right, we'll now go to the commissioners for disclosures. Commissioner Rohrmeyer, please.
Patron of the site. Thank you.
Familiar with the site, Commissioner Becerra?
Commissioner Armstrong, I'm familiar with the site.
Commissioner Velto, please. Commissioner Munoz, then, while we wait.
Velto,
Commissioner Munoz, no disclosures.
Commissioner Velto, you there? Oh, he's not there. Okay. Commissioner Draculich, I am familiar with the site. We'll try to get, is that Commissioner Velto? Commissioner Velto, if you can give us your disclosures, if you're good, buddy.
No disclosures.
All right, right on. Okay, we'll now go into public comment. Michelle, any requests to speak forms?
I did not receive any request to speak forms for this item. We did receive correspondence and NAB comments for this item. Those were forwarded to the Planning Commission and have been entered into the record. We did not receive any voicemails or requests to speak via Zoom.
All right, thank you very much. All right, anybody in the chambers wish to speak on this item? Seeing none, we will close public comment and open it up to the commissioners for questions of staff or the applicant. Commissioner Becerra, please.
Sure. Not much of a question as much as just a great job, Heather, for taking in the community feedback. I think there was a comment from the adjacent business about safety and security. It seems like that concern is perhaps addressed with the conditions. So good job. I have no issues.
Commissioner Draculich, I just have a question for staff. So just two things. So condition number 5, so help me out. Was this business running or allowing gas purchase at 2 in the morning?
I can't confirm it, but I is my understanding.
Maybe I can ask Derek and you can stay up there because I have one
Yes.
for that.
Yeah, thanks. So the site recently changed hands. I'm representing a new owner.
Okay.
What happened in the past, we don't know, but
Okay.
we're here to comply.
Okay. And Heather, my question on condition number 5, I guess I'm assuming it's those little tiny screens next to the pump. Is there a reason we don't want those on? I'm assuming with no residential.
Just on the off chance that it could be an issue, we were trying to figure out any way possible to mitigate any issues related to noise, and so we thought that was a good way.
Okay. Yeah, because I've seen those at, late at night, and I don't see those as a hindrance in any way, personal opinion. I guess question for Derek, does the applicant want those to be running? Does that help them as a business?
They like them. We'd be happy if it was agreeable that they could run.
Okay.
We thought that condition was a little restrictive, but we weren't willing to jeopardize a hearing over it. But if the commission saw fit to remove it, we would agree with that.
Okay. All right, and that was just my thought. I'll let the commissioners stew on that a little bit. Does anybody have any other questions for staff or the applicant, Commissioner Velto or Commissioner Munoz?
No questions here.
Yeah, Commissioner Munoz, no questions.
Okay. Well, if we want to entertain a motion or move into discussion, I, for one, would like to see condition 5 gone just because I know what those are for, and that helps generate business. And I see a good business. I visited this business 100 times in my life, and I don't see any problem with those screens, but also it looks like they wouldn't hold it up. So just my opinion.
Commissioner Draculich, this is Commissioner Velto. I'm in agreement with you on that. If you'd like to remove that condition, I would support the motion.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, just for clarity.
Sure.
Would you mind reading the condition or
Yeah, condition 5, no amplified music or video advertising shall occur at the gas pumps or under the fuel canopy between 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. So I took that and I think Heather confirmed it's those little tiny small screens where you're pumping. It's an advertisement. I've never run a gas station, but I'm assuming that generates business or is good for their business model in some way. The system is there. I don't see how the light or the noise would be a hindrance to anybody at 1 or 2 in the morning. So I'm just always a fan of helping small businesses, and if this helps them and they would like it, great. If you guys don't agree, I understand too.
No, I think that's great feedback and something to think about. I would love some more insight from Heather, Like, what was the reasoning behind that? What?
Like I said, there was just a concern that noise from the fuel canopy might be a problem. So we were just trying to get ahead of the game and stay on top of any future enforcement issues by putting in that condition and restricting the noise at the fuel pumps themselves.
Okay. Maybe happy medium or like middle ground would be like, we do away with it, and if it becomes a problem or something, it's something that we can work back in or something.
For the record, Mike Rayleigh, planning manager. I think the intent was that, for example, a lot of gas stations now have much larger screens on the pumps than what this station has that can be fairly loud at night, and when you have low ambient noise that would carry, it's definitely within your purview to take that off, but to add it back in later is really not an option. It would become a code enforcement issue if there was a problem.
Commissioner Rohrmeyer or Armstrong, any thoughts on it?
Commissioner Armstrong, I don't have any issues removing the condition, just being familiar with the site. It doesn't appear to be kind of like if you go to a Maverick or maybe like a more modern gas station, they have like actual amplified kind of surround sound type stuff, but that doesn't seem to be the issue here. So I would be comfortable removing the condition, but frankly, I'm good either way.
Okay.
I mean, I like it as presented too.
Okay.
I can support removing the condition. I don't particularly see a need for screens at the gas pump, but so be it.
Okay. Well, whoever wants to make a motion, I would support a removal of condition 5, but would listen to a motion in the other direction.
This is Commissioner Veltz. I'll make a motion.
Okay.
In the matter of case number LDC 24-00048, based on compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the conditional use permit subject to the conditions listed in the staff report, except that we are removing condition number 5.
All right. We have a first.
Commissioner Armstrong, I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please, Commissioner Becerra.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Just one more question. I'm not familiar with it because I'll kind of throw myself out there more on the EV side, and so I haven't done the whole gas thing in a while. But what is displayed or played on those screens? Is it advertisements? Is it MTV
promotion.
videos or?
Yeah, dance party. Yeah, no. Usually promotions for the business, specials they might be running, offers to join their membership club, things like that.
Yeah, and do you find that to be like a form of revenue? Is it help drive business? Is that?
Yeah, I mean they believe in it. Yeah, they think it's worth having it. So yeah, they'd like to keep it. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I think some customers find that presence kind of welcoming. Maybe late at night if there's no one around. Maybe I can see some customers find that comforting to have some sort of activity there at the site.
Okay. Do you know if I think there was mention that there was another gasoline station up north Moana, and do they have that too?
There isn't another gas station right in this immediate area.
Not the immediate,
There's a
down
24-hour
ways.
business further north. That's a 7-Eleven.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah, but they don't have gas.
Okay.
And there's a gas station east on Moana Ballpark. I don't think they have those.
Got it.
I know what you're talking about. All right, so we have a motion and a second with the removal of the condition 5. See no further discussion. We'll go to a vote. All in favor? Aye.
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 All right, seeing none opposed, motion passes unanimously. Good luck with your project. Thank you, guys. All right, we'll move to item number 5.2, case number LDC 24-00045, Santerra Quacy Properties Condition Amendment. And it looks like we'll get a presentation from staff. Kick away, Jeff.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Jeff Foster, Associate Planner for the record. Tonight, bringing you a condition amendment request for Santerra Quacy Properties. Many of us are familiar with the Santerra Quacy development, but to recontextualize it, the site is approximately 1,164 acres in Verdi south and east of I-80. A tentative map and special use permits were reviewed by council on appeal and approved back in March of 21. And the condition, or the request tonight is to amend condition number 20. The key issue is public safety. There have been fires in the area. When there have been fires, fire response has typically been a joint effort by the City of Reno, Truckee Meadows Fire Protection, the U.S. Forest Service, BLM, and sometimes other local jurisdictions. There are multiple fire stations in the area. The little table to the right, City Station number 11 is approximately a 9-minute response time. City Station number 19 is approximately a 13-minute response time. And Truckee Meadows Fire Protection District number 40 has a 6-minute response time. And that's important because there's an automatic aid agreement where TMFPD Station 40 or TMFPD in general would provide automatic aid for fire situations in that area. It's also worth noting that land for a future permanent fire station was recently dedicated and accepted by the city on the south side of Boomtown Garson Road interchange. So condition number 20, existing condition, it's on the screen. I'll read it real quickly. Prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the 25th residence within the project, the developer shall provide for the temporary use of an appropriately modified single-family home or commercial building, the residential station, for purpose of housing a 2-person public safety crew and co-located ambulance, police, fire, and/or EMS equipment. The residential station shall provide direct access to a collector or an arterial road at a specific location to be mutually agreed upon by the developer and the city prior to approval of the first final map, and shall be available for use until the city acquires or constructs a fire station with a 6-minute response time to the project. Again, remember I just said that that parcel was recently dedicated to the city for purposes of constructing a future fire station. That's what that last portion is saying. It's worth noting that this condition doesn't say anything about staffing the station, any guarantees, any requirements. It just says that the developer shall provide a home that will be used as a temporary residential fire station. That's going to become important later. So the applicant has requested an amendment to the condition prior to the issuance of the first certificate of occupancy for a residential unit within the project. The applicant shall contribute $300,000 to the city for a City of Reno for a fire truck. So some context. The intent of condition number 20 was to convert a house into a temporary fire station with a 2-man crew to respond to medical calls, not fire calls, until a permanent station is built. This type of station would typically have an ambulance or a medical vehicle, not a fire truck. A new fire truck can range from anywhere between $200,000 to north of $2 million. Whereas a fire ambulance would cost would be less than $300,000. Therefore, the proposed $300,000 contribution is based on the cost for the city to purchase an ambulance to serve that temporary fire station. It's worth noting also that there are several other fire-related safety conditions in the approval. For example, number 5 has a $1,608 per door and per square foot financial contribution towards that future fire station. Which is also a condition that's on other approvals out there, including Stan Lucas and Meridian 120 South. Vegetation management plan has already been approved by the State Forester Fire Warden. That's condition number 6. Number 7 requires a secondary emergency access. That's currently in the building permit process. And number 19 requires all homes out there to be sprinklered, regardless of whether or not the fire station is built or when the fire station is built. So, more context. The city no longer no longer desires that temporary fire station, and that's primarily because of budgeting and staffing concerns. The fire chief will speak to that later, if you would like, but in essence, this condition was never vetted. It was never analyzed in terms of cost to the city for the ongoing staffing, and effectively, it just doesn't make sense. And so the applicant would like the entire condition struck with the remainder of the language down below. Prior to issuance of the first certificate of occupancy for a residential unit within the project, the applicant shall contribute $300,000 to the city to help pay for a new fire truck. The recommended findings for a typical tentative map and CUP The only ones that are relevant to what we're analyzing tonight are the availability of public services and whether or not the request would be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare. Staff feels that with all of the existing conditions out there in terms of the existing fire stations, the automatic aid agreement, the future public facility site, the fact that the homes will be sprinklered, the vegetation management plan, et cetera, that those findings can be made. It's also important to note that the Planning Commission is not making the decision tonight. You're making a recommendation to City Council. So here's the recommended motion, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. Looks like we'll get a presentation from Angela. Mrs. Foose, please.
Good evening. For the record, Angela Foose, Assistant Director for Development Services. I am wearing the hat today of the applicant as the City of Reno. Fire Chief Cochran and I here are representing Reno together. So just to clarify, this is not the developer requesting this change. They will do whatever we ask them to do. This is the City of Reno Fire Department requesting this change. So I'm going to give you a little bit of history on the Mortensen-Garson overlay. There is a lot of history related to lawsuits, the vision for this whole area, and that includes fire safety for this whole area. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that and then tell you why specifically the fire department is asking to remove this condition. This plan, everything in yellow is within the boundaries of what we call the Mortensen-Garson Overlay District, or the MGOD, as a lot of you have heard this called. This goes back more than 20 years. So back in 2001, there was a big lawsuit, and it was between Reno and Washoe, Truckee Meadows Regional Planning. The outcome of that was basically what we have today. So there was a settlement agreement that then expired and translated into what we now have in our zoning code called the Mortensen-Garson Overlay District. Most of these areas that you would normally see with like these big planned communities are planned unit developments. This is not a planned unit development. This is very much piecemeal different developments. And again, those piecemeal developments are because of 20 plus years of a lawsuit and a settlement agreement. So just so you understand, everything in yellow is the area that was once envisioned for development. So let's start with what is also part of those requirements, a school site. As part of, again, this is a zoning code, it's an overlay in the zoning code. Within Planning Area 3, which is within the Santerre-Quacy area, they have to dedicate land for a future school site. There's also a requirement to dedicate land for a future fire station. This has been planned for 20 plus years. This is where the fire station will go. The good news is that that land is free. So as part of the development that's been approved out here, they had to dedicate 3 acres to the City of Reno. The city now owns that land, and whenever the city is ready, they will build a permanent fire station. Other things that, again, we don't need to talk about, but just so you understand the full picture, there's a plan for parks. There's a plan for a trail system. Again, everything in yellow is part of that bigger plan. There's a plan for hillside development and ridgeline protection. There's a plan for wildland interface. And again, because this area is in an area that hasn't been developed for 20 plus years, all of this has been planned for 20 plus years. So we really hadn't seen any development come forward, even though, again, this has been a planned vision since 2001. It was back in 2019, so within the last 5 years, that we started kind of seeing these developments move forward. The first one was this what we call Meridian 120 North. Most of that's built. You've seen it if you drive on I-80. It's on the east side. It's houses. The next one was Meridian 120 South. That was also approved. It has not started construction. They haven't moved forward. They were in a lawsuit for about 3 years. Those lawsuits have been resolved. The next one was Stan Lucas. That's a pretty significant one, over 600 homes. Also went through an extensive lawsuit, and it turns out that project is approved, and they are moving forward. Nothing's been built yet. A lot of industrial development has now been under construction out there. Again, all of that was part of the bigger vision. So where we're at today, right, the Santerre-Quacy, it's over 1,200 units planned. With that, again, they have to show that there's fire protection, and they have to show that there's a school and parks and trails. So let's talk about fire. The planned station, not built because there's no homes out there yet, is in red. The Somerset station, that's existing, that's a 4-man crew, is in blue. The good news is that yellow development next door, Stan Lucas, is required to provide access through their site to that Somerset fire station. And then, of course, the fire station in green is that, it's a Truckee Meadows Fire Station. That's the one that's about a 6-minute drive to this site. So when Santerra was approved, there were a number of conditions that were added specific to address fire. That was a big topic when this project came forward. It was a big topic when Meridian came forward, and a big topic when Stan Lucas came forward. This has been a huge topic, every development that's come forward within this overlay district. So specifically for Santerra, we added a fire fee. We're calling this a fire contribution because we don't technically have the right to require somebody to pay the city to build a future fire station, but it's a contribution and they've agreed to it. So for every house that comes forward, they're going to contribute $1,680. The city will take that money, put it in an account, eventually have enough money to build a fire station or at least help to contribute to build that fire station. That's the permanent one. We also have that vegetative management plan. Again, it's reviewed by Reno and the state. And then we have a secondary fire access. One of the big discussions with this project is there's only one way in and one way out. That's today, there's only one way in and one way out. A lot of the Washoe County residents had expressed concerns if there's a fire, there's all these new people living out here, how is everyone gonna get in and out? So that condition was modified during the council meeting. Initially it was that secondary fire access had to be constructed by a certain number of units. That was changed. Council said, let's make sure they have that secondary fire access, right? 2 ways in and 2 ways out before house number 1 is built. So that was addressed by City Council when this went to council. Another requirement is fire sprinklers. Well, yes, we require fire sprinklers anytime you're out of our fire response time, meaning the house has to be constructed and have fire sprinklers in the house. We went a step further and we said, regardless of when a fire station is constructed, you will still have to put fire sprinklers in every single house in this development. That's not code, that's above and beyond code. We don't normally do that. But council again heard the concerns from the neighbors and said, let's address those fire concerns. So number 20 is the one that we're here tonight about. Number 20 essentially says that the developer, when they get to the 25th house, will take a house and basically donate it to the city on a temporary basis. They're going to make the garage wider and deeper and taller. They're going to put in some generators. And then the city of Reno will be able to man that as a 2-man crew. A 2-man crew does not provide fire service. Just to be clear, that was very much stated at the public hearing. They only provide emergency medical service. So if there's a fire next door, they do not show up. If there's a 911 call for somebody's having a heart attack, somebody slipped and fell, they would show up. Now keep in mind too, REMSA is our citywide operator of transporting people. So REMSA, on the record, again, this was 4 years ago, provided a letter saying, yes, this location is in their service territory, and yes, they are prepared to provide REMSA service when the houses are built. So the challenge we have with this, when this item went to City Council, this was not something that staff threw out as a recommendation. It was not something that we had vetted with our fire department or our finance department. It was something that the council members said, let's do this to address some of the fire concerns. So the challenge we have now is, well, it's great that they're gonna give us a house that, again, we can use as a 2-man crew. How are we going to pay for it? Meaning, how are we going to actually pay for an ambulance to be there? How are we going to pay for a 2-man crew to be there? And we're not talking 2 people, right? This is a 24/7 manned fire station, which means you have to actually hire about 7 or 8 new people to man that station. So just on a yearly basis, for those 7 to 8 new staff members, it's about $1.2 to $1.4 million. That was not discussed, that was not budgeted. Now let's talk about why that's a concern. I want you to understand just kind of the history of fire and funding. One of the big complaints we hear from people is like, you know, I pay taxes, that money goes to fire. True, it also goes to police and fixing potholes and planning staff and engineering staff. It goes to a number of different things. There is not this endless pot of money that we just have sitting in reserve for every new person that we have to hire. We're usually negative people. We're also negative in terms of how do we build fire stations. There is zero pot of money to build any new fire station. We do not have the means as a city, and we haven't. Historically, we don't build fire stations. The last 2 fire stations that were built were paid for by development through big planned unit developments. Somerset was built, and again, there was funding through that master plan community. The other one in South Meadows, Station 12, was built as part of the South Meadows development. So that's historically how we have built fire stations. If you go back the last 10 years, back in 2014, major changes in the economy, obviously. Our taxes took a negative dive, so we actually had less money coming in because everything was dropping in value. We had to lay off 35 firefighters. Significant impact to the City of Reno Fire Department. With laying off 35 firefighters, we also had to close down fire stations. So the concern we have, and again, with this condition, we never know what the economy is going to look like. At any moment, if the economy slows down, we don't have the ability to hire new people. How are we going to guarantee to anyone that we have the ability to hire 7 to 8 new firefighters to man this temporary crew? Lots of concerns, again, big picture that was never vetted with finance or the fire department. And again, historically, over the last 10 years, we lost a lot of firefighters. We closed down stations incrementally as we've been building up more money and taking in more money and just, again, been a little bit smarter about how we handle fire. We've been able to open those 3 fire stations. It was a slow, incremental process. They went from being closed down for years to having 2-man crews. And then a couple years later, 4-man crews. So we've slowly been able to do that. But there definitely is not this abundance of money for anything. In terms of buildings, we get the question, well, we have this land, right? We have 3 acres for a permanent fire station. When are we going to build that? As we talked about, one of the conditions for this development is they actually have to pay for every house they build. So every house that comes in for a building permit within all of the Mortenson-Garson Overlay District has to pay $1,608. None of those projects are moving forward quickly. This all takes time. So really over the next 20 years, we may see those 3,000 homes come to fruition. We would like to build a fire station before 20 years, but again, there's not this pot of money to build it. I mean, let's look at just our needs right now. Our downtown Reno fire station, it used to be where the Aces baseball stadium is, closed down because Aces was built. They moved it to a temporary location on 4th Street. That now is a picture of that temporary fire station. That's a sprung tent that was never intended to be a full-time use. But we are, 13 to 15 years later? And that is still our fire station in downtown Reno. Mind you, that is the 5th busiest station in the United States. Huge calls for service, right? Like that is a big, big need that they serve. Not just Reno, the entire nation. It is the 5th busiest. Big need, and yet we have them living in a sprung tent structure. So it just goes to show we would love to be able to build them something new, but this is what we have to deal with. We have 2 structures, or two fire stations that are in these sprung tents. So again, this isn't the only one that we have a need to build them a new one. We have other needs across the city as well. So it just kind of in closing, I just wanted to share, when we look at where we put fire stations and when we make them a 2-man crew or a 4-man crew, a lot of thought goes into that. And that's where Fire Chief Cochran can go into a lot more detail. If we have a station that has 25 houses that they serve, they may get, 5 calls a year? That does not make sense to have 7 to 8 people managing that temporary fire station for 25 houses, right? What we do know, though, is we do have other fire stations in the area, and the benefit for this area, which is also unique, is that it's part of an automatic aid agreement. Now, that is basically an agreement between Truckee Meadows and Fire and City of Reno Fire. So wherever there's a fire, whoever's the closest will respond. Truckee Meadows Fire has a station 6 minutes away. From a fire perspective, we have that backup coverage that we don't have through most of the city because we don't have that automatic aid through most of the city. So again, from a protection perspective, we feel that there's coverage from a fire perspective. We also have REMSA. Again, once houses are built out here, they'll be able to have more people out here. They generally don't come to the Santerre area because there's no houses in the Santerre area. And as our tax structure changes, When the recession hit, taxes fell, and they have not bounced back. When it comes to property taxes, state law does not allow us to increase the taxes by more than, I think, 3%. So we are still in a negative tax structure. Basically, new development is paying for existing development. And there's not much we as the city of Reno can do about that, but we have to, again, live within our means. So again, our request is to remove that condition because we as the city of Reno cannot guarantee that we will be able to man it. So from that perspective, we would still like to get something out of this that will benefit the fire department. So we said equivalent to what would be an ambulance, pay us $300,000. We'll put that in our fire fund and be able to use it to buy an ambulance. All of our trucks are able to rotate to different locations, again, based on the need of the city and more of the bigger picture. So again, the city would still benefit from this. The developer still has to pay us something for that on top of everything else they have to do and everything else they have to pay us. This would be in place of a temporary fire station. Now you can keep that temporary fire station requirement. Again, totally optional, but we may get nothing out of it. Those residents are depending on this. They may get nothing out of it. So our concern is we would like to at least have some guarantee that we would get some benefit from this project that we can then use for fire protection. So that's why we're proposing this. Chief Fire Cochran is here for any questions on the logistics, and I was hoping I could just kind of walk through again the history of MGOT in this condition, and we're both available if you have any questions.
Thank you, Angela. Appreciate it. All right, we'll kick it to the commissioners for disclosure. Commissioner Armstrong, please.
Commissioner Armstrong, read and received emails.
Commissioner Rohrmeyer, read and received emails.
Commissioner Becerra, same disclosures.
Commissioner Munoz.
Commissioner Munoz, same disclosures.
Commissioner Velto.
Commissioner Velto, same disclosure.
Commissioner Draculich, same disclosures. Okay, we will now open it up to public comment. We do have some requests to speak forms. First up is Alice House. Alice, did you want to make your statement on the microphone, or did you want it added to the record? I have your printout here. Great, thank you. And next up after that would be Adrian Argueras.
Alice House for the record. Our family moved from Sparks to the Bel-Air Ranch area estates in Verdi over 35 years ago. We raised our 2 sons in Verdi. When we built our home the county and the developer promised improvements for the safety of the community. They never fulfilled these commitments. At the time, my husband worked for Truckee Meadows Fire Department. Our youngest son grew up and became a firefighter in Elko County. He was also a negotiator for the firefighters in his district. Our family background is rich in the firefighting and EMS profession. My husband was one of the first Truckee Meadows union officers. He worked very hard to negotiate a mutual aid contract between Truckee Meadows and the Reno Fire Department to get the closest fire department to the emergency first. A very important fact to remember is EMS response time saves lives. No department can dispute. The mutual aid contract was not achieved then. Over 30 years later, these 2 departments are still trying to get the same situation resolved. Seems as though this critical working relationship is futile, doomed to never working out. The existing contract is for automatic aid for fire emergency only. It does not include EMS calls. This is not closest station that runs on scene first. It is jurisdiction runs first, assesses emergency, and then calls other departments to help as needed. Much slower response time for this area. The city of Reno requires a 6.5-minute response time to scene. Impossible for any Reno Fire Department station to reach the Verdi area. Basically, the breakdown is overfunding, which department will receive payment for response and how much? Money over saving lives does not sit right with the need of the existing and future people of Verdi. The majority of calls for a fire department is for EMS. First in firefighters and EMS personnel save lives, period, full stop. Verdi has no City of Reno Fire EMS station. There is an influx of thousands of people coming in the near future. The existing community has worked very hard to at least ensure that there will be a temporary EMS house for medical emergencies. This is only until the City of Reno can build, equip, and man a desperately needed permanent fire station. What the Reno Fire Department chief is proposing will leave the residents, present and future, in grave danger. The temporary EMS house will save lives. I implore you to leave this condition for the EMS house in place for the safety of our community.
Thank you, Alice. Appreciate it. All right, Adrian Argueras wishes to make a statement in opposition, and after Adrian will be Ken McNeil.
Good evening. Adrian Argueras. I'd like this put on record. I want to point out that when the annexation happened, a fiscal analysis was done, and it was $16 million in tax dollars per year. And that was 20 years ago. That amount would be more today. Plenty, when these houses are online, to have a temporary two-man fire station for emergency medical services. It also needs to be noted that in May of 2022, the city increased the 3,000 to close to 3,300. Now, Condition 20 is about adequate EMS response to a massive development. The condition was not added to benefit Reno Fire. It's for the benefit of the residents. It was not added to be used as an ATM machine and cashed out for a new fire truck to be used elsewhere. The condition was added so that the finding of adequate medical response could be made and a project approved. The request to modify eliminates making the finding. The staff report doesn't even address EMS, even though Condition 20 is about EMS. Angela just touched on REMSA and the cost of manning, but they didn't address EMS. The report only addresses fire, and Angela pretty much just addressed fire. You can't use conditions for fire to justify changing a condition for EMS. The staff report says the area is an automatic aid area, and TM is required to respond to fire calls. The report says automatic aid provides additional protection. Well, this is kind of deceptive because the condition is about EMS, and automatic aid is not for medical emergencies. Truckee Meadows Fire is not required to respond to EMS. In order to approve this modification, all the findings still have to be made. The response time for EMS has not changed since March 2021, when the condition of approval was added. So the finding for adequate EMS cannot be made today without the temporary fire station. Thank you.
Thank you as well. All right, next up is Ken McNeil, wishing to make a statement in opposition, and after Ken will be Deanne Radcliffe.
Well, good evening, commissioners. I want to take, and I hate to do it, to take opposition to some of the things you've been told tonight. I think you were told that this station was put in, initially it would only serve 25 houses, but you saw the map. There's West Meadows, there's another development, they're already built. Those developments would be served, so I believe also the 2 casinos out there in the Verdi area would be served. There'd be other houses and properties, so it's not just 25 houses. And I think we should all be honest, myself included, when we're telling you what is going to happen if this is eliminated. Also, you haven't seen the REMSA response times. I hear they're terrible out in the Verdi area. You know, they just take forever for REMSA to get out there many times. And also, they were talking about Station 19. Station 19 is going to lose funding for half of their firefighters January 1st. At least the grant money is going to run out. Once that grant money runs out, I don't know how they're going to fund those positions. They haven't told you that. And I think that that stuff is important. And now I'll get to what I was going to talk about. There's really been very little documentation to show you that what they're saying, the city representatives, is actually correct information. The proposed budget, evidently, there's going to be a hardship on the city budget, but it says may. So I think they should really explain why it either will or will not. And I don't think that's happened tonight. Also, if you look on page 4 of the staff report, March 24th, 2021, I'm sorry. Here we go. I can't tell if, can you see that? No.
Yeah, you're good. And Ken, you have about 20 seconds, my friend.
Okay. Anyway, this staff report indicates that there will be a general fund positive contribution of this project of $16.2 million. I think that was mentioned by one of the other speakers. So there will be money available, and if this money is not available, we need to know why. I'm sorry, I'm out of time.
Thank you, Ken, appreciate it. All right, next up is Deanne Radcliffe, wishing to make a statement in opposition. Not until you state your name.
But I hope so. Okay, great. Good evening, members of the Reno City Planning Commission, and thank you for allowing me to speak. Please lodge my comments onto the public record. My name is Deanne Radcliffe, and I would like to briefly tell you about my background. I am a Reno native, and my dad served the Reno Fire Department as a captain. My profession is in healthcare, and I serve as the American Heart Association Training Center Coordinator at my hospital. I want to state that I am not representing the American Heart Association or my employer. Rather, my comments are in my capacity as a private citizen. In the 1980s, the Reno Fire Department introduced a program to train their staff as EMTs, so residents had the best quality care. Data from Reno Fire in 2023 indicates in excess of 30,000 medical calls. This is 60% of their total call volume. As you can see in the table, the Reno Fire Department's strategic plan includes a goal to decrease total response time. Removal of this fire station will not support that goal. The core value of, it's on the right-hand side, the lives and well-being of the citizens, visitors, and department members are our highest priority. How does removal of the fire station support this goal? Approval of this request is a no-brainer. So let's talk about it. As you can see, the brain loses its oxygen stores within 20 seconds. Additionally, there's a wealth of research supporting early, high-quality CPR and defibrillation. Statistics quoted vary from 7 to 10% decrease in survival for each minute that CPR is delayed. You'll note that prognosis is also dependent not only on the start of CPR and defibrillation, but the quality. I'm going to demonstrate for everybody. Those residents are losing. You can't hear him, but he says apply pads to patient's bare chest. Plug in the connector. We're gonna do it. Don't touch the patient. He's analyzing. Don't touch the patient. All clear. Okay, so if you support removing this fire station, do you also plan on driving to Sacramento, Susanville, Fallon when you have a medical emergency? Because that's really what we're doing, right? These residents would be best served by leaving the fire station there and receiving the medical response that everybody deserves. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I'm impressed. Michelle, any other requests to speak forms come in or people on Zoom?
I did not receive any more requests to speak forms. Correspondence was received and forwarded to the Planning Commission. No voicemails were received, and no one on Zoom has raised their hand.
All right, thank you. Anybody in the chambers wish to speak on this item? Seeing none, we will close public comment and move to the commissioners for questions of staff or also staff. Commissioner Becerra?
Absolutely. There's a lot to take in here, and maybe just some questions for my edification, hopefully the bodies, and hopefully the good folks here. Maybe for Angela. If nothing changed tonight, we kept condition 20. Would we as a community receive a fire station in the Verdi region tomorrow or next week or next year?
No, again, the temporary fire station is triggered by toll development at the 25th home. So when they come in and build house number 25, they then have to set aside a house that they have built that would then be used for the city of Reno on a temporary basis. That does not mean we have the ability to man that station.
Right. And which home count are we on? 0, 1?
Right now, there's 0 houses. In the Santerra development, there's 0 homes.
Okay. Just so for clarity, as of now, we're not taking anything necessarily away that's not there physically.
No, and if Santerra never moves forward, this temporary fire station never happens. But that permanent station will still happen, right? That permanent station is part of the broader Mortensen-Garson overlay district. So that permanent station that will be manned with a 4-man crew will eventually happen one day. We have land. Again, we don't have funding to build it, but we have money coming in as each house is built. We'll collect money, and again, through taxes. And just to clarify too, that 16.2 million in taxes was over the life of the project. So assuming the project takes 20 years to be built, 16 million will come in over the course of 20 years. That we don't get that with day one. And again, it's not all going to fire.
Okay, and just one or two more, and I'll
Please,
step back. Since we are in a financial pinch, it sounds like, would the $300,000 be earmarked for this ambulance, or will tomorrow we have another emergency and that be moved somewhere else?
The way that the condition is written is that it would be earmarked for an ambulance. And it's not necessarily for this fire station. Again, we don't even know when this permanent fire station will be built. So we will be able to add another ambulance to the broader City of Reno carpool, ambulance pool.
Okay, perfect, thank you so much. And I'll just have one for Chief Cochran, if I may. Thank you so much, Angela. And Chief Cochran, thank you for being with us this evening.
Absolutely.
Just a general question. What do you need from us, for you and your crew, to best serve the community today, next week, and into the foreseeable future as we navigate this situation we're in?
That's a great and timely question, given the fact that I spent most of the day in the budget workshop with City Council earlier. My priorities as fire chief have always been people, apparatus, and by that I mean fire engines, fire trucks, and then fire stations in that order, because those are our biggest needs. You heard it from Angela, and I'm basically reiterating what she said in different words. Staffing is a challenge. I asked for 15 firefighters this round in the budget process, and I got 0. And that's because I wouldn't call it, times are tight. We're not laying off anybody. We're not reducing service. But that also demonstrates the need that I have. If I had my wish, we would have 50 more firefighters in this department right now. And that's with 0 homes being built out in the Verdi area, because that's the need we have right now. I can't get that currently, which just illustrates the difficulty, the challenge that it would be to get those 7 or 8 that Angela mentioned, and that's accurate. That's about $1.4 million in today's dollars to staff a station out in the Verdi area.
Great, thank you, Chief. And just to follow up, if you were to receive the $300,000, would that be something that you'd be able to use to get a ambulance like right away, or would that be sometime down the road?
Again, great and timely question. We have been very successful, and I don't want to sound like we are understaffed, but we've done a good job of building our staffing. We've gone from 211 line personnel to 254 in the last number of years, so we're growing, we're getting there. And I mentioned that second priority, the apparatus. We have a constant program where we are introducing new apparatus now, new engines, new ambulances, new ladder trucks. In fact, we're doing putting a new engine in service tomorrow at Station 2. Mm-hmm. We also, I learned yesterday, or maybe it was 2 days ago, have the opportunity to acquire an ambulance that is ready to go, kind of off the shelf, which is important, kind of getting into the weeds, but the supply chain issues, everything that hit everybody during COVID, hit us as well. So if I were to order a new ambulance today, I could expect to see it in about 18 to 24 months. But I have the opportunity to get one in July, which I will be doing.
Wow, great. Thank you so much, Chief.
Absolutely.
Yep, I'll yield my time.
Commissioner Velto or Munoz, didn't want to forget you, a virtual world there.
This is Commissioner Velto. I appreciated Commissioner Becerra's questions, and I think they followed a lot of the questions I had. So I don't really have anything to add to what he's already asked.
Commissioner Munoz, anything, buddy?
No, Commissioner Bush, I'm in the same boat. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other questions on the commission, we can move into discussion or entertain a motion. Commissioner Becerra, if you do.
I can entertain a motion for discussion, or we can go into discussion. Does it matter? Okay, I'll just discussion. I want to support the fire chief and his crew here for sure, and I also hear the pleas of the community. But I think there's two distinct matters here. There's how do we play poker to get the best deal here, given the circumstances. I think Angela mentioned, if we do nothing, we might get nothing. And so we're trying to get something out of this to address the circumstances that we're in. And separately, but related, but still separately, we need a fire station at some point, sooner than later. We are the fastest warming city, as folks probably know, in the country. And I think, in general, my question is to the city, maybe staff, like, what's our long-term plan there? But I still think that's separate from the matter tonight in getting something, not just for the chief and his crew, but for the community as well. Just some thoughts.
Thank you. All right, if there's no discussion, open to a motion.
Commissioner Miller, second motion.
Okay, please do.
Case number LDC 24-00045. Based on compliance with the applicable findings, I move to recommend the City Council uphold the staff recommendations, and I can make the findings.
All right, we have a motion.
Commissioner Belton will second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Good luck. Thank you. All right, move on to item 5.3, which is case number LDC 24-00044, Riverside SPD. And we'll get a presentation from staff. Hi, Grace. Oh, thanks. Yep, cool.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners. Grace McAdin, Senior Management Analyst, here to discuss the Riverside SPD. So the 1.39 acre site is located abutting the Truckee River across from Idlewild Park, west of the terminus of Riverside Drive. The applicant is requesting a zone change from multifamily 30 units per acre to a specific plan district. Key issues analyzed with this request included compatibility, availability of services and infrastructure, and conformance with the master plan. I also think it's important to point out that some background on this site. It's currently owned by the City of Reno. In 2022, the city issued a request for proposals, or RFP, to find a party that would develop this site. The city entered a purchase and sale agreement with Built Construction for construction of this proposed project. And so conceptually, this kind of went to council, and they went with Built for kind of what they had proposed for this project. The proposed change from MF30 to SPD will allow for development of a 65-foot tall, 180-unit building. Although the applicant is only planning for about 123 units and 55 feet tall, to provide some flexibility for the future without requiring an amendment to this handbook, the applicant proposed development standards based on the larger 180-unit, 65-foot tall complex. So as discussed, the overall development plan for this project is a 65-foot tall building with 180 units and 109 parking spaces. All other items will defer to Title 18 as amended. Something else this handbook will allow is to exempt the development from this shadowing ordinance that we have. This shadowing ordinance requires all structures that are outside of downtown that exceed 45 feet in height not cast a shadow on residentially zoned property between the hours of 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. on December 21st, which is the shortest day of the year. Due to the proximity of this site to downtown, the height of the existing surrounding buildings, and the opportunity for infill, staff supports this exemption of shadowing. I'd also like to point out that before this project came through, there was a 165-foot tall condo that was approved on this site, and shadowing was also deviated from just due to the kind of existing pattern of development in this area. As mentioned previously, all development that is not addressed in this handbook will defer to the MF30 or multifamily 30 standards in RMC as amended. Here is a comparison of RMC standards and the development standards in the handbook. As you can see, it's fairly comparable aside from that density. I would also like to point out that although the front setback is a minimum of 10 feet due to the access to the river, and the river, it will be significantly larger than 10 feet. In conclusion, here are the findings for a zoning map amendment. Here are the findings for a specific plan district. This project does not conflict with state law, conforms to multiple master plan policies, and it provides a unique parcel with infill development. That concludes my presentation. The applicant is here prepared with a presentation as well, but I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Grace. Get a presentation from the applicant's representative. Come on up.
Good evening, Chris Baker with Manhart Consulting here on behalf of the applicant. A few introductions first. I have Kurt Stitzer with Built in Riverside Development, who is the applicant in the audience. I also have members from Kimley Horn, who are the engineer who prepared the preliminary studies, including traffic. And also, he's trying to hide, but Jim Mickey, who's a beautiful rendering that is in front of you. So he's the architect. Again, thank you to Grace. She did a great job. I'm going to try not to be redundant. I'll try and kind of skip through some slides to make sure and save any time that you guys do have. Again, project location at the terminus of Riverside Drive, just there north of the river. Existing zoning as indicated. The master plan's suburban mixed use. The zoning is MF30. A little bit of that background, in 2005, LDC 293 was approved for the subject site. Again, that was the 165-foot, 12-story luxury complex. That was the mapping that you saw there on Grace's exhibits. In 2022 was the issuance of the RFP, which the applicant did respond to. In the RFP, I think it's important to point out that there were some strategic goals. Kind of these are the five main ones: address affordable and workforce housing, increase housing density, ensure placemaking quality of life, sustainability, and have an attractive and vibrant Truckee River corridor. In 2023, the applicant entered into a purchase and sale agreement with the city based on those goals. And again, the request in front of you as part of that purchase and sale agreement is the MF30 zone change to SPD, which I believe was one of the terms of that purchase and sale agreement. So as a result, you end up with the existing zoning of MF30 and a proposed zoning of the SPD. As you see, there's actually another SPD that was in front of this Planning Commission, I want to say last year, that you see there on the corner of First and Keystone, so they're not unique to the area. As indicated by staff, the SPD, it's a hard one to say, man, it really is. It really basically utilizes those MF30 base design standards. So anything that is not addressed reverts back to the underlying zoning and those standards. And to meet those goals, we utilized the mixed-use suburban design standards. So we just picked them from the next zoning designation up, which is in correspondence with the underlying master plan of suburban mixed use. And again, that was pertaining to allowable units, maximum number of stories and building height, and then the landscaping going from 20% to 10%. The conceptual renderings and site plan actually do meet, they actually exceed the 20%. But if you did read in the staff report, there's discussion of a future flood wall adjacent to this property and the river, and the request is for 10% to not prohibit any of the landscaping from ultimately being torn out. So as indicated, the justification for this proposed SPD, it is consistent with the property's SMU master plan designation, and it is consistent and compatible with the surrounding development. We're here to answer any questions, and we agree with staff's recommendation for approval. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Sure.
We will now go to the commissioners for disclosures. Commissioner Munoz, please.
Commissioner Munoz, I spoke with the applicant's representative briefly, and I'm familiar with the site.
Commissioner Rohrmeyer, please.
I spoke with the applicant's rep, I reviewed emails, and I've been to the site.
Commissioner Becerra, same disclosures as Commissioner Rohrmeyer.
Commissioner Armstrong, I spoke with the applicant's representative, read and received emails, and I'm also familiar with the site.
Commissioner Dracula, same disclosures. And for
Commissioner Belto, same disclosure.
All right, we got you back. Great. Okay, we'll now open it up to public comment. I have some requests to speak forms. First up is Rhonda Thiessen, wishing to make a statement in opposition. And after Rhonda will be Dennis Black.
I'm Rhonda Tyson. I live next door to this proposed project. Let me explain what I've gone through over the last month. This last Saturday, it took me an extra half an hour to get to Renown Hospital because Riverside Drive was closed. And I got caught up in all the traffic that was trying to snake its way through downtown. The Saturday before that, I didn't even try to leave my apartment because all of the intersections that are purported to have been studied as part of this application were filled with thousands, probably tens of thousands, of pedestrians, vehicles, baby carriages, and bicycles. Why? Because Reno was celebrating Earth Day at Idlewild Park. The Saturday before that, I tried to go shopping. Riverside Drive was closed for another event. I had to turn around, change my plans, and go in a completely opposite direction. This application talks about traffic as it existed on a November day over a period of two-hour periods. It didn't even capture the time when Reno high school students flood that intersection when they come home from school. Is there anybody here who has said they're familiar with the area, who believes that traffic on a November day, on a Wednesday, is the same as it is on a Friday in July? It's not even the same on a Saturday in April. I oppose this zoning change, but today I have a much smaller ask. Ask the question, how are you going to come in and out of that project when Riverside Drive is shut down? How are you going to come in and out of that project on Food Truck Friday, or Feed the Camel Wednesday, or Earth Day, or any really nice day in June, July, August, April, September? You haven't asked the question, so there isn't an answer to it. I'm lastly concerned about the proposal indicating that it is going to usurp our private property rights at 1200 Riverside for a throughway for emergency vehicle. It needs to go back to the planning stages so these problems can be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you as well. All right, next up is Dennis Black, wishing to make a statement, or is in opposition but does not wish to make. Do you want to come to the mic?
I'll make a quick one.
All right, it's all you. Go ahead, brother. And next up is Jody Black.
Hi, Dennis Black, also next door neighbor to the project. My comments are very similar to Rhonda's about I'm kind of on board with something pretty being built there instead of the lot that's looking kind of crappy. And but just the size of it just seems crazy, and there's only half amount of parking places in there to accommodate the people that live there. And I know that's code apparently, but you can't get anywhere now. Today, we walked here to this meeting tonight, and there was 8 City of Reno trucks and a fire truck blocked that whole area, so no one could drive in there where their access point is going to be, the only access point to that property. They were cutting down a cottonwood tree, and that whole area was packed. So if there was an emergency tonight, someone could not get out of there, and one of our entrances was blocked completely to our property. So it seems like too much congestion, and not enough thought given in that traffic and parking area. Just if they had more on-site parking for them would help the neighborhood, which is already impacted with the parking area as it exists now with all the apartments and condos around the area. So, thank you.
Thank you as well. Jody Black is in opposition. Oh, do you want to make a statement?
Thank you.
Please.
Jody Black, I live at 1200 Riverside. I'm not in opposition of something being built on that property. I think that would develop the property positively, and I look forward to that over the vacant lot that is there right now. One of the things that we heard at one of our own homeowner association meetings was about the access from this property through our private property to allow for emergency vehicles not to have to turn around. And so I just feel like this evening we haven't heard about that part of their proposal to allow vehicles to go through our property. And so I'm concerned about that overall and not sure when that part of the question gets answered. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you as well. Michelle, any more requests to speak forms on this item?
I did not receive any more requests to speak forms. Correspondence was received, and that was distributed to the Planning Commission and has been entered into the record. We did not have anyone register to speak via Zoom, and we did not receive any voicemails on this item.
All right, thank you. Anybody in the chambers wish to speak on this item? Seeing none, we will close public comment and open it up to the commissioners for questions of staff or the applicant. Commissioner Armstrong, please.
This one's for staff. Thank you, Grace. Can you just get into more detail for me on the access road and some of the easement issues? I guess I don't understand how you could get through someone's private property, I guess, at will. I don't really know how to explain it, but if you could just give me some more insight on how that would actually work and what the intent actually is.
Sure, and I can explain kind of like a broad overview, and then we do have Chief Cochran, and then the applicant can get into some more specifics. If I could get the overhead. Okay, so to orient you, Riverside Drive is, the terminus is right here. The private property, 1200 Riverside is this property, and then this is the proposed project. And so this access would be new. I don't have an existing photo of the site, But the thought is, you know, you don't have to obviously get through 1200 Riverside to get to this site. I think some of the concerns raised is if they want to go through, because the fire truck doesn't want to turn around right here, which was kind of the intent, was that there is kind of sufficient space for them to turn around, that they would have to go through that private property. So from our understanding, working with our fire department, that wouldn't be necessary. It would also help kind of improve the access that's there currently for 1200 Riverside, that they could use actually this private property to get to 1200 Riverside in case of emergency and just increase their access there. And so that's kind of my understanding working with our fire department.
Thank you. I'm good for now.
Commissioner Munoz or Velto, didn't want to forget about you before we come back here.
Commissioner Maris, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Looks like maybe Commissioner Becerra.
I appreciate it. Same here.
All right. Thank you. Any questions on this end?
Sure. Yeah.
Go for it.
Good. Maybe for Grace. Along the lines of traffic, but maybe more pedestrian traffic, we heard some comments about just congestion, and when we have these high-density projects, that's going to be part of the package. And maybe taking a step back or zooming out a little bit, what's our strategy, our multimodal strategy in general to help address single vehicle usage and that congestion that comes with it? I know there is concern about, or a question posed, is there enough parking for all these folks, or is it assumed that everyone's going to be, you know, one-to-one vehicles, or folks are going to be walking, and do we have public transportation?
So glad you asked this question. I'm so glad I printed this. If you could zoom in. So there is a bus stop kind of on Keystone and First, and it's less than a quarter mile from this proposed site. And so that was definitely something that staff looked at as a benefit. But they're not proposing to vary from parking standards. So the way our parking requirements work is if you're within a quarter mile from the downtown zone or a downtown, mixed-use downtown zone, you can provide parking at 60% of a 1-to-1 ratio. So the applicant is providing parking at that code ratio. I think that it's definitely a busy area, and there's some different policies to take into account at this point. I mean, there's a lot of studies that prove that density increases, you know, neighborhood and community character, and a sense of neighborhood. And I think the fact that this is a busy area is a good thing. You know, there's people being drawn to this area for certain reasons. So there's an availability to use public transit. There's an availability to use different modes of transportation, more so than a lot of the other projects that we see before you, and those projects are also meeting their parking needs. So they're not asking to vary from parking. There's availability of different modal services, and it's, you know, within a quarter mile of downtown.
Great, thank you, Grace. And just one quick follow-up. There was comment about the traffic study potentially being done like on a slow day when folks are probably eating turkey or tamales and not out driving around. Was it done on a slower day than usual, or was it done on a typical, you know, day or over the course of a week or two?
I can defer to the engineer who did the traffic study.
Sure, thank you.
David Jockman, Kimley Horn traffic engineer for the record. This was done on Wednesday, November 15th. That was a week before Thanksgiving, not the day before Thanksgiving, and that is a standard day.
Okay, great, thank you so much.
Commissioner Draculich, a question for Grace. I know you can't, it's kind of tough to answer, but east side of the building is an unnamed alley. I'm assuming, I've never traveled that alley. It gets you to Jones Street. I mean, we're going to assume that some residents are going to utilize that, and so we do kind of have this Riverside or probably a little bit of a shortcut down the alley. Do you see any problem with the residents using that?
No, there is some parallel parking along that alley on their private property.
Yep.
And I know that I think people utilize this alley for, there were some comments that people walk on this alley. I do know just from visiting the site that some people park on this alley. They use it to drive currently. And so that's not a concern.
Okay. It looks like it provides some relief to the conversation that we're having right now, so, and it's not being changed.
Yep, no change.
Great. Commissioner Becerra.
Sure.
Back at you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Along the lines of foot traffic, and there was I think, comment about fire engine potentially being able to go through the private property. And I think from my understanding, directly ahead, that adjacent building.
Oh, perfect.
Oh, yeah, perfect. Is this the new one? Is this the proposed?
This is proposed.
Okay. So if the fire engine went just kind of straight instead of doing a U-turn, would that potential traffic of the fire engine impede pedestrians' ability, like the residents in that adjacent building, to be able to walk freely or anything of that sort?
So if the fire truck was on the proposed project site, it could, I mean, I don't think it would, there's about 40 feet from the entrance to the garage to the end of the pavement. The access total is 26 feet. And so it does give them adequate space for a fire engine. I don't know that during an emergency, people would necessarily be allowed to walk under like the ladder while they're fighting it. So I don't, that's not like a preferred pedestrian route at a time of emergency. So I don't know if that helps answer your question.
Yeah, I think so. Because I was trying to keep in mind, too, I think there was talk about a wall or something going in and potentially losing some of that current space.
And so there is a proposed flood wall, and that's proposed from the city of Reno. We don't know where that is going to be, and we don't know when that will be constructed. And so it became difficult for the applicant. I know one of their proposals is a possible pedestrian path along the river. Because we don't know about this flood wall yet, it puts a lot of things kind of in, they're a little unknown. And so they, once we kind of have a better idea of where that flood wall will be, we can kind of make some plans to improve that riverside. But at this point, we just don't know when that will be or where it will be.
Okay, thanks. And one last follow-up before you get off the plate there. If this goes forward tonight, what's the next steps that maybe the community, specifically the neighbors, can anticipate? Because there are a lot of valid concerns and questions, a lot of unknowns to your own admission of when something might happen and so forth. And so maybe another way of questioning is there still room for community input down the road? Should this get approved this evening? And I asked too because I believe, is this NAB 2? Is this
I think it's Ward 1.
Or Ward 1? Is this? I believe it was canceled once or twice recently, and so that doesn't leave a lot of room for folks to really share their feedback and to collect that feedback.
Correct. And so there will be, because this is a zone change, it comes to the Planning Commission. Planning Commission is recommending body to City Council. And so there will be 2 opportunities at City Council to provide comments and input at that time.
Great. So we're still in early stages. Great. Thank you.
All right, we can move into discussion and/or entertain a motion.
I'm definitely going to support this project. I'm Commissioner Rohrmeyer. I mean, not only did the city put out an RFP for this specific and selected this design, I think it exemplifies the sorts of goals we have for our downtown. It serves as a nice transition in terms of height from its context. It opens up new access on the river. It adds enhancement to a bladed current empty lot in a very prime location. I see only good things here.
Great. Sounds like you might want to make a motion.
I will. Sure. In the case of LDC 24-0000044, 3 zeros, based on compliance with the applicable findings, I recommend that City Council approve the zoning map amendment.
Second, Commissioner
And
Becerra.
subject to condition 1 is the proposed motion. Just if you want to make sure that's tacked in there.
Subject to the proposed amendment.
Okay. We have a motion?
Commissioner Becerra, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, boys online?
There is nothing I could have said that would have been better than what Commissioner Rohrmeyer said. So I will support the motion as well. This is Commissioner Valto.
Okay. Go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Good luck with your project. We are going to take a 10-minute break, We will convene back here at 7:50.
Grace, can you come back?
Michelle, how we looking? You ready? All right, folks in the chambers, we're going to get back from this break. All right, Alex and Arthur, you good? Hey, folks in the front here, we're going to start the meeting again, please.
Yep, good to go here, Commissioner Balto.
Arthur, you back, bud? Michelle, did we have Commissioner
Munoz, back.
Cool. All right. All right, we're going to reconvene here. Moving on to item 5.4, case number LDC 24-00043, Silver Dollar Storage. And we got a presentation from staff.
Good evening, Commissioners. Carter Williams, Associate Planner for the record. Before you this evening is a conditional use permit for a self-storage facility located in North Valleys. The 9-acre site is located south of Silver Dollar Lane, across from Cloudburst Drive. For area context, this is located along US 395 with Lemon Drive to the, it's north of Lemon Drive and south of Stead Boulevard. The specific request is a conditional use permit for a 400-unit mini warehouse facility with outdoor RV storage adjacent to residentially zoned property. So the property is located within the general commercial zone, which is a wide variety of commercial uses allowed. The mini warehouse use specifically requires a CUP. In addition to that, any non-residential development proposed adjacent to residentially zoned property requires a site plan review, and it is included in this application. The property carries the master plan land use designation of suburban mixed use and is conforming with policies related to community development, as well as transitions, and this is specific to the scale of the proposed development adjacent to residential, as well as the implementation of standard residential adjacency requirements that are required by code. So the key issue identified in the staff report is compatibility with surrounding uses. To the north and the east are single-family neighborhoods. There is an existing self-storage facility to the west and a non-conforming single-family residence to the south that abuts the freeway. Generally, from staff's perspective, and I think this is reactive to some extent or supported by some of the public comment that we've received, regarding traffic, the proposed use of a mini warehouse is one of the lowest intensity uses, and with the scale proposed of being single story, it's a low traffic generator and a single story building. So adjacent to residentially zoned property, this is probably more compatible than other uses that would probably generate a lot more traffic on this single lane or 2-lane road. Regardless, staff has recommended conditions in conjunction with residential adjacency standards. Condition number 9 is recommended to restrict the use of materials that might reflect or provide glare from the building or roof. Condition number 10 is specific to sign, where it restricts the height and illumination of signs and prohibits flashing or animated signs. Condition number 11 was proposed to allow for the Reno Police Department and Code Enforcement to review the operations and the site in order to balance security with impacts on the adjacent neighborhood. The proposed, on the screen is the proposed site. Generally, our residential adjacency standards require that higher activity or areas of commercial uses be located away from residential areas. The residential areas are across Silver Dollar Lane in this screen and at the bottom. That's the east side of the site. The proposed site plan proposes everything concentrated in the center and provides building walls surrounding that high intensity area to reduce sound and other impacts. To look closer at that boundary between the residentially zoned property, there is a little bit more architectural interest on this side with the jog and the wall. And there is a higher density of landscaping provided in these areas to provide a buffer between that residential to the east. And a code requirement pursuant to the Land Development Code is that a minimum of one evergreen tree is provided for every 30 feet. Generally, they've provided a mix of evergreen and deciduous trees that goes above and beyond that requirement. These are the elevations. The north elevation is proposed facing the Silver Dollar Lane, and the lower image is the east elevation facing the residentially zoned property. Generally, this does actually meet the requirements for architecture within the code, and the east elevation is supplemented also with that clustered and additional landscaping, as well as a 6-foot solid fence that's existing to those residences to the east. On the screen are the findings required of a conditional use permit. Staff was able to meet all the findings with the code requirements regarding residential adjacency being robust as they are, and the additional conditions. And on the screen is the recommended motion. We have a presentation from the applicant. I will be available for any questions.
Thank you, Carter. Appreciate it. Get a presentation from John.
Good evening, Commissioners. John Krompottek with KLS Planning representing the applicant. Is there a different audio system here? There is? I'm usually getting grinded by some of you about extending the microphone, but it seems like it's resonating more.
You're good now, buddy. We did it for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is a lot more comfortable, too, with staff going first, so thank you very much for the change in course. I won't be redundant in this case. Staff touched on that. There's the site. I agree entirely that the issue really is about compatibility. And so what I'm prepared to talk about is the land use intensity, which is an obvious measure of compatibility, and then there's design mitigation, basically, of which Carter hit pretty hard. The one side, A1 storage, of course, the compatibility takes care of itself. So really the focus on our effort in design has been about the adjacency and then the activity being central to the site. RV parking in the center, basically a horseshoe type of design. And then so that obviously deals with the mitigation on the traffic, the noise, the parking. We have wall pack lights mounted on the buildings that are 9 feet tall, all contained internal to the site. Then on the residential side, as Carter pointed out, the articulation of the building there, you can sort of see it in the footprint with the entire setback covered with the landscape as proposed, the 95 trees and close to 600 shrubs. North facing, that's the north elevation facing the street, which is fairly well embellished with regard to that being a public view corridor, obviously, and similarly on the residential. Just to give you orientation to the site as it sits today, that was done in the wet part of the year. There's a residence, and this is from the freeway. You can see some perspective of the adjacent residential, the storage, and then there's the existing structure there. I did like to touch on, since it was in the staff report, but I think the fact that there were 16 letters from neighbors, I think, is usually meaningful. And you go, what's going on here? And 10 of them suggested that storage isn't needed. Obviously, it's a market issue. I'm working on 3 in the region right now. It's a crazy thing, but what we find out from the market experts are that we're shrinking in house size. We're obviously shrinking in yard size, which is good. It's a resourceful way to manage growth, but we have all our stuff, and we're doing off-site storage, i.e. mini storage. That's really what's going on. So there is still, from my understanding, and I deal with this a fair amount, certainly not an expert at it, but just the market side of storage is significant still and apparently not being met yet. So there's that. I do respect the comment, the fact that 10 citizens did put it in their letters. 7 say too much traffic. Obviously, we all know that this type of use is the least intense use there is in the development business, right? basically 10 p.m. peak hour trips, 180 T, less than what would be with houses there. And just the NAB comments real quick, I think we've embraced them and addressed them in the design as presented. Lighting, given the residential adjacency, obviously contained to the horseshoe area, the internal part. Enhanced landscape, enhanced screening with the landscape buffer, and then maintenance of the landscape buffer were really the issues. So thank you to staff. It's been a pleasure working with Carter. I like him, and I really appreciate his preparedness and professionalism. And with that, I will just leave it for any questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it. I will go to the commissioners for disclosures. Commissioner Armstrong, please.
Commissioner Armstrong, read and received emails.
Commissioner Rohrmeyer, same disclosures.
Commissioner Becerra, same disclosures.
Commissioner Munoz.
Commissioner Munoz, same disclosures.
Commissioner Veltzer, same disclosure.
Commissioner Draculich, same disclosures. All right, we will now open it up to public comment. Michelle, I don't see any requests to speak forms. How about any Zoom?
I did not receive any requests to speak forms. No one has their hand up for Zoom. We did receive correspondence that was forwarded to the Planning Commission and is added to the record, and no voicemails were received.
All right, thank you. We do.
Oops. We do have somebody that keeps raising their hand, so I'm not sure if she wants to speak. We have Amber on the line. Amber, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm trying to get this to work. Is it working for you guys?
All good. Go ahead.
Awesome. I would like to speak on this if I could.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Amber Davis.
Thank you.
Whenever.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So first off, I would like to say that this has been a family-owned business right next to the property, A1 Storage, since in the 1970s. This business has really going to be impacted by another storage facility right next to it. There's only one entrance into the facility as it stands. That Silver Dollar Lane entry, they're going to have to pass two entrances into this storage facility before reaching A1 storage facility. And there's only one way to get there. So I just wanted to make aware that it's really going to be detrimental to this other storage facility that's already here. And then let alone another thing with the traffic coming in, there is going to be more traffic. I know it's one of the least amount of traffic things because it's a storage facility, but that's another aspect to it, to have to go around the roundabout and pass all the residential areas to get to the storage facility here when there's already one there. I just wanted to make that aware to the community that this is going to affect the other storage facility a lot and change the look of the community. And I'm in opposition of it. It's fence to fence with this other one.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Any more Zoom?
No, that was it.
Okay. Anybody in the chambers wish to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close public comment, go to the commissioners for questions of staff or the applicant.
Commissioner Rohrmeyer, I have a question for Carter. This is looking at the site plan. What is the distance between the driveway of the neighboring storage, which enters just west of the driveway, the second driveway? Do you have the site plan?
So we may be able to pull up the site plan if we could on that, and we can look at it. There is a driveway. I guess you're more concerned about the driveway.
The spacing seemed awfully close.
So there's two driveway accesses adjacent to. One is an existing access easement that provides access to the property to the rear close for the freeway. But then I don't know if John might be able to answer that. I don't have an answer for you. It meets our standards for driveway distance, though.
All right. Just appreciate the comment we got from public comment. Thank you.
Commissioner Munoz or Velto?
No questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Munoz, no questions. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Becerra, go ahead.
Sure. Maybe for Carter. build upon Commissioner Rohrmeyer's comment, but a little different. We sure are getting a lot of storage unit requests, maybe the North Valleys. Is there a particular reason or trend or thing you can speak to?
I mean, working with some of the applicants that have proposed these, I mean, there is a consistent trend that they communicate that there is a need, there is a market need, and that does make sense as we start building houses. There is a natural need, I think, for storage facilities. I can't really speak more to that from a staff perspective, but it is an allowed use, and it's. I think it does meet certain, criteria that align with some of the comments, even though they're in opposition.
So great, thanks, Carter.
We can move into discussion, and I'll piggy that, Commissioner Becerra. Yeah, I guess what I didn't think about until John made the comment is we do build a lot out there, and lot sizes are smaller, and I could see how, if these companies are finding a market need, and we're doing something that's low impact, and no, it's not a strip mall with restaurants and retail and things, which we like to see in North Valleys, but this obviously is fitting the need of the neighbors. So it was great to see this, something other than residential. And if the market yields it and they fill up, then obviously we're helping those community members up there, and they're not storing 3 miles down the highway to somewhere else. So to your point, it kind of hit me when John mentioned it. So. And if there's no other discussion, we'll entertain a motion.
Happy to make a motion.
Please do, Commissioner Armstrong.
In the case of LDC 24-00043, Silver Dollar Storage, based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the conditional use permit subject to conditions listed in the staff report, and I can make all the findings.
We have a motion.
Commissioner Valtol, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes unanimously. Good luck with your project. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the final item of the night. Item 5.5, case number LDC 24-00046, Ranchera Village 7 tentative map. We will get a presentation from staff. Yeah.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Commission. For the record, Leah Picotti. I'm an associate planner with the City of Reno Development Services. This evening, I am presenting an application for a tentative map which would allow for a 59-unit single-family residential subdivision located in Village 7 of Ranchera. The 12-acre project site is located southwest of the McCarran-Kitsky intersection on the north side of Falabella Way. The proposed tentative map will allow for a 59-unit single-family detached residential subdivision with common areas. Detached single-family residential uses are allowed by right in the Ranchera urban residential land use area, which Village 7 is. Key issues analyzed in this request are the overall site design, compatibility with surrounding developments and uses, parking, and access and circulation. With all the recommended conditions of approval, the proposed design meets and exceeds code standards, addresses applicable findings, and staff recommends approval subject to the conditions of approval listed in the staff report and the addition of one condition that I'm going to present tonight. To give you a little bit of background, the Ranchera PUD handbook was originally adopted in the early 1990s. Prior to the implementation of the PUD handbook, the site was used as the Harris Family Ranch, more commonly known as Ranchera. Tentative maps have been approved for villages 1 through 6B. The table on the screen there is an accounting of all of the number of lots allowed and the number of lots approved and proposed for each of the villages. Here you can see that within Village 7, the urban residential area, The PUD handbook allows for 310 units. This is the most dense area of Ranchera. However, the proposed number of lots before you tonight is 59. So the overall density of this area is significantly reduced from what was originally approved in the handbook. As proposed, the request does conform to Ranchera Handbook and Reno Municipal Code. The proposed lot lines, or the proposed lots are 0 lot lines ranging from about 3,200 square feet to about 3,300 square feet. The homes will be developed in clusters, as you can see there on the board, with up to 6 homes per shared driveway. The property surrounding the homes will be common area, which will be, per condition 6, landscaped and maintained by the homeowners association. Additionally, regarding the overall site design, we've added condition number 11, which just makes sure that there are sidewalks on both sides of the roadway and that those sidewalks do connect to the entrance of each residence. Additionally, there is a public utility easement along the northern portion of the site. We will need to have that public utility easement relinquished prior to approval of the final map. Regarding compatibility, to the north and east are existing office complex and a senior housing development. Per the Ranchera Handbook, homes directly adjacent to the existing buildings shall provide a 10-foot landscape setback and an additional 1-to-1 height setback ratio for each foot in height over 15 feet. Since at this point, this is just a tentative map and we don't know if those are going to be 1 or 2 story, we have implemented condition number 9, which just repeats what the handbook already says, but we just want to make sure that that's in there for all future review. Additionally, regarding compatibility, we have implemented condition number 10, which restricts the days and hours of construction. That does restrict it to 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturdays, and there will be no construction on Sundays or holidays. Regarding parking, all homes will include a 2-car garage, which will provide 118 spaces. 60 additional off-street parking spaces will be provided within the shared driveways. Since there will be no on-street parking, staff recommended condition number 7, which requires 3 parking spaces per unit. The Ranchera Handbook defers to Reno Municipal Code regarding parking. Any residence under 2,500 square feet requires 2 parking spaces. Anything over 2,500 square feet requires 3 parking spaces. Since at this time, we don't know what the size of these homes are going to be, I think they're going to range somewhere between 2,100 and 2,800. We are requiring that each home does provide that 3 parking spaces. Again, since there's no on-street parking, got to allow for some guests. Let's see. As proposed, 10 units will have private driveways, which is the orange you can see up there on your screen. Staff recommended condition number 8, which requires that all driveways be a minimum of 19 feet in length. Again, that's a repeat of something that's directly out of the handbook, but since the exhibit on your screen there doesn't exactly demonstrate that, we just wanted to condition it to make sure that we do get that length and people aren't parking in the shared driveways outside of designated parking areas. The northwest portion of the site is developed with a parking lot for the existing 6,100 square foot sales building, which you can see in the box on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. Prior to the Planning Commission hearing, staff performed a site visit to determine if the southern parking lot, which you can see on your screen there with that 16 parking spaces, meets Reno Municipal Code. Yesterday we went out there, we determined it doesn't currently meet Reno Municipal Code, so we are asking that the Commission add a condition of approval that prior to the demolition of the existing parking lot, that parking lot be brought up to code. Regarding access and circulation, a traffic impact study was approved along with an amendment to the handbook in 2014, and then a traffic study update was provided in 2018. The study itself looked at there being 310 multifamily apartments here. So with 10 trips a day, which is the average for a residential use, that study contemplated 3,100 trips per day out of Village 7. The actual proposed is 59 units, which would be approximately 590 per day. That's like a 75% reduction in what was shown there. Therefore, staff did not require an updated traffic analysis for the proposed development. We did receive quite a bit of public comment on this, and the main concerns there were traffic, limited access in and out, narrow roadways, removal of the existing parking lot, and lack of parking in the village. Some of the mitigation that we looked at there was regarding traffic and limited access in and out. Again, the proposed use anticipates 77% less daily trips than the traffic study that was submitted. So staff is having a hard time suggesting that they update that when it's such a significant reduction. Regarding the narrow roadways, roadways have been designed to meet the minimum requirements. In Unit 7, we are not going to allow any on-street parking, so hopefully that will mitigate some of the concerns regarding the narrow roadways. Lack of parking in the village. Again, Reno Municipal Code requires 2 spaces for up to 2,500 square feet. Condition 7 is going to require 3 spaces per unit, which exceeds the code requirements. And then regarding demolition of that existing parking lot, staff recommends the Planning Commission add a condition of approval that states prior to the demolition of the existing parking lot, the parking lot to the south of the existing sales center be brought into compliance with Reno Municipal Code. Tentative map findings are pretty basic. We have a compatibility finding, which being that this is surrounded by residential and low-impact office uses, we do find that this use is compatible in this location. The subject proposal does comply with the master plan, NRS, RMC, and the Ranchera handbook standards, and in some cases, it exceeds those standards. And because this is an infill project, public services and utilities are available for this project. So staff was able to make all of the tentative map findings here. The recommended motion does include the addition of that condition regarding the parking lot. That concludes my presentation. As always, I'm available for questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you as well. We'll get a presentation from the applicant.
All right, good evening. Lee did a great job. My name is Eric Hasty for the record. I'm representing the applicant. Lee did a great job, so I will just kind of touch on some of the concerns that we heard at the NAB and try to go over anything else that I think could add to her presentation. So just to reiterate, this is the last village, really the last large village in Ranchera. Ranchera has gone through a number of tentative maps and approvals, and you can see that we have a total of the approved units there. And most of these other villages, we were able to propose and get as much units as was allowed in there. And so Village 7 really took up about, there's 310 of the 722 units that are allowed within Ranchera as a whole. So that's almost half of the units, and we're proposing 59. So with this, you can see with this overlay as well, looking at the actual aerial or the latest aerial that we've had, that Ranchera is almost built out. There are a few areas where increased density could come in. The commercial area is pretty much built out. There's a little bit in the red area in the north commercial, and but all throughout, this is the last big area within Ranchera. And when this was originally approved for the 722 units and all these other assumptions as far as types of commercial uses that were being allowed, the trips that were proposed to be generated in this were far higher than what we're seeing right now, and especially with this proposal. And those traffic mitigation measures that were recommended in that traffic study have already been put in prior to even coming forward with this proposal. Furthermore, if there is any other impacts that are happening within the area, these units will have regional impact fees that are associated with them, and those go into a general fund for RTC and City of Reno to try to decide where they can be used. So if there's any other traffic mitigation measures that need to be addressed, then these units will go to regional impact fees to address those. So addressing the additional condition, I would just like to state that we are under the understanding that we would be able to meet this condition. We will be removing the north lot, and because this was being used as a sales center, a lot of people came in using the north lot. There was access. You didn't have to go through the gated area, and without this sales center there now, we don't really have a need for this much parking. This sales center is going to be functioning as an office, but it's not going to have as many visitors, so it's required less parking. 16 parking spaces is what it's going to be required to provide, and there's plenty of room for us to go ahead and incorporate those improvements prior to the removal of the parking lot in the north. Again, looking at how this is laid out, these are patio homes, which is very similar to a single-family detached. However, you don't have the lot, you don't have the backyard, you don't have a private backyard that's fenced or anything like that. And so this is a little bit different than what you see traditionally, but this is really geared towards people who don't really want to have any maintenance on the outside. So pretty much everything that you own is on the inside is very much like a townhome. Everything on the outside is really taken care of by the HOA. And this will add a bunch of landscaping as well as pedestrian amenities throughout the development. And then looking at the parking, again, we are proposing 3 parking spaces per unit, which is based on the maximum amount you can have for a single-family detached that is required by City of Reno code. This is 60 additional off-street parking spaces, as well as 2 spaces per garage. And you can see that the zoomed in one there, how this kind of really functions. These shared driveways are more like an alleyway where you're not really allowed to park. There are some options for people that's for some of these units that will have private drives where you can park in front of the garage, but that's only on several of them, like Leah was explaining. And then the reason for this parking requirement is because each one of these homes has the ability to go to 2 stories, but the 2-story addition is really only for another room, a bonus room really. Most of these houses are designed to just be at 1 story. And so along the northern boundary where you have that additional setback, there most likely won't be all of these homes having the 2-story, and that's where it triggers the 3 parking spaces per unit according to Reno code. And so there's highly unlikely that all of these will go to the 2-story. Just to point out too, there is an existing detention basin to the north that's kind of operating for the entire Ranchera development. That is part of this development. That will remain as part of this as well and be landscaping incorporated into it. I'm available for any questions if you guys have any. So, thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. We'll go to the commissioners for disclosures. Commissioner Rohrmeyer, please.
Commissioner Rohrmeyer spoke with the applicant, and I'm familiar with the site. I'm sorry, read and received emails as well.
Commissioner Becerra, same disclosures.
Commissioner Armstrong, same disclosures.
Commissioner Velto?
Commissioner Velto, same disclosure.
Commissioner Munoz, same disclosure.
Commissioner Draculich, same disclosures. All right. We will now open it up for public comment. We'll start with the request to speak forms. First up is Christine Speed. And after Christine, we'll have Ronald Gray.
I'm going to use the overhead.
Could you please bring the microphone closer to you, please?
Yes. My name is Christine Speed, and I live in Cantero, and I'm here because although the residents now hold about $310 million plus stake in Ranchera, we are still not consulted about any development plans that will affect the enjoyment of our property or its value. So here's the first map. Like many, I'm concerned about how traffic flow from Village 7 will degrade my community, and my community is Cantero. That's this here. That's Cantero. Let's see. Because Village 7 is not just alone by itself on a map. It lives within a context, and that context is Cantero and Latigo 2 here. Red curbed dapple gray way is this street right here, and it measures 24 feet wide. Its extreme narrowness can only have been approved by the city because it was pitched as an access road for the residents of Cantero only. And here is an example of what our tight life looks like when the weekly garbage trucks come through. Let's see, this way. We can't pass the garbage truck. And during construction, all the tradesmen's trucks had to park two wheels on our sidewalks in order to allow any traffic to come through. Obviously, Little Dapple Gray, where we're not even allowed to park in front of our homes because of its double red curbs, was never designed as a throughway, yet it's become one to accommodate the traffic from Latigo 2. Latigo 2 is over here. See how sealed off it is. And when they come from the south, they come down Ranchera Parkway, and instead of going all the way up here to Ranchera and then down in Falabella to get to home, they shortcut through here. And so that right now, we're living through a traffic failure. And let's see, Village 7 is far more dense than even we are, and two curbs. Here you've got entrances going on Falabella, but these curbs, these entrances are going to use dapple gray if you don't build their own exit onto Sierra Rose Drive.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next, it was Ronald Gray. He says he does not wish to make a statement, but it is in opposition. All right, next up would be Glenn Gray, wishing to make a statement in opposition.
Hello, my name is Glenn Gray. I live at 730 Cantor Way in Ranchera. Our master plan was developed over 10 years ago, and what we see today is very different than when it was conceived. It has evolved and has been changed incrementally over the years as developers come before the Planning Commission to put forth their ideas for development. There are now almost 250 residents already built in Ranchera. The master plan was conceived without any of those residents having any input, voice, or influence as to what the community would look like. That does not have to continue. I'm going to ask you, when was the last time all of you visited Ranchera? Where did you go and what time of day were you there? Same with the staff. If you haven't been there recently, I'll invite you to take you on a personal tour to show you Ranchera at certain times of day, such as the photograph of the trucks coming through the small streets. When a developer presents you with a plan, I'm curious as to what your evaluating priorities are for that plan. With regard to the proposed 59 home development, where do the residents that live in the community rank in those priorities? Are we number 1? Are we number 6? Are we number 7? Are we considered at all? Has the staff or any of you suggested any changes to the current proposed plan? If you have, we'd like to know what was found wrong with it and what was suggested to change it. Well, like maybe instead of 59 homes, maybe 40 homes. Maybe more open space parking. How are you going to have someone come over, have 2 family members come over? Where are you going to park their cars? You have 1 parking space extra per house and none on the street. Where do they park? Someone suggested that they park over at the club, 3.5 blocks away. Have your parents come over and join you for dinner. Tell them to park 3.5 blocks away. There is 0 parking, 0 on the street in there. Where do 2 guests with 2 cars park to visit you? And the current development is approved, Ranchera will add at least 300 more cars when it's all developed. In addition, the club at Ranchera has over 300 non-resident members coming and going inside Ranchera. And the general population of the Reno metropolitan area has increased by 23%. The traffic is reaching a crisis point today. We have 300 more cars potentially coming.
Thank you for your time,
my
sir.
time is up.
Yeah, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Next up is Michael Grotti.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Hello.
My name is Michael Gratz. I'm a current resident at Ranchera. I live in Cantera. I will be looking onto this beautiful development. I'm not opposed to the development at all because it's obviously land that was designated for construction. However, the current proposed plan lacks vision. It lacks vision not just for today, but for 10 years from now. Specifically, as you already heard about the traffic, I don't see the 3 parking per home. I don't see that. The current
Roy, you got any good jokes?
Thank you.
Oh, no, not yet.
Not yet, okay.
Do we need Michelle? She pressed the counter button. Roy, I think we're good, buddy. Go ahead and fire away.
All right, sir.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Roy Cage. Thank you. Nice to see all the members of the board. I live in Ranchera. We bought in there, I think, in 2017, our lot. We got an occupancy permit in 2020, I think with the 7th or 8th house in there. I think that people who buy property, whether they do it individually, through groups or whatever.
A little closer to the mic. Sorry.
A
Yeah,
little
perfect.
closer to the mic.
There
Yes,
you go.
sir. Thank you. I think they should determine what they do with their property. However, you can't do it by stepping in the face of your neighbors or causing a dangerous situation. And our friend Christine has shown you guys pictures of what the traffic is like in Cantera, and it's going to be worse in this place. most of the folks that occupy Ranchera, I'm not one of them, but there's a lot of them from California who come up here, and they're either refugees or missionaries, I don't care which. Anyway, when they come in and their kids and grandkids and so forth come in to visit, they have parking spaces they need on the street. I just can't see 59 houses in here, ladies and gentlemen. The density is what I'm talking about. We need to reduce it, and if you want to have a good street, think of this. Mr. Raley one of his troopers can tell us to the inch how far it would be, but in my view, you ought to be able to have a garbage truck pass a fire truck going in opposite directions with cars parked on one side of the road. And if you reduce that density to that, I think you'll be in the ballpark. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Next up is Audrey Keller, wishing to make a statement in opposition. And next will be another Mr. Keller.
This way.
Oh,
okay, thank you, Audrey Keller, for the record. And I'd like to show on your screen. Thank you very much. Let me move this over a little bit. So we're all residents here, and we want to talk about parking because we know for a fact that everybody's bringing in their Suburbans. And yes, I came from California. Sorry, Roy, but I think you like me anyway. What I did was take the plan, and I circled and showing you 3 extra parking spaces, 5 extra parking spaces, 3. I count 11 guest parking spaces for 59 homes, and that's insufficient. And then the original plan that we were shown at the NAB meeting, when this plan was shown to us, there was basically an old asphalt parking lot used for the secondary parking lot, only held 6. Since the city went for a visit, they repainted it like this last week and put in, I think, about 15 spots. Well, they're doing that in anticipation of wiping out this parking lot shown here, which is interesting. It's for 4 more homes. However, what they don't tell you is that the Ranchera Clubhouse is so small, most of you have all been in it, I'm going to guess, that the HOA meetings are held inside this facility. It's gorgeous, it's got a full kitchen in it. It could be a restaurant, it doesn't have to be an office. Yes, it's commercial. However, wiping out this beautiful parking area for this community is ridiculous. It's a waste and an abuse of where parking could be for the community. So now I want to show you this. I checked this with the city planner. Thank you, miss. Thank you. I wanted to know if, first I want to make you familiar with the parking lot itself, because we're talking about, the residents are talking about parking. This is the front entry, the main entry of that beautiful commercial building. They're going to wipe it out. So that building gets its stuff cut off when you take off that front entry. And the part I checked about is the Talbot Lane entrance to this parking lot is private property. That street is private. When it comes around the corner, goes before the gatehouse, that's private. So they should have an entrance right here. This is a custom monument built for the sales office. Why are they going to wipe that out? They said it wasn't fenced. The whole thing is fenced. It's gorgeous. So my suggestion is, A, don't let them wipe out that entrance for 4 houses. They wipe out the entrance, they destroy the public building, and they don't allow for parking. And finally, the developers showed us what they did when they closed off, they closed off the Talbot entrance to guests. No Talbot movement for guest parking. That's important. Why? Because that changes the nature of the traffic study. That means all visitors have to come through the row of death, which is off of Kitsky. So they changed, we need a new traffic study. Thank you.
All right, next up is Werner Keller, wishing to make a statement in opposition.
Good evening, everyone. Werner Keller, also Ranchera resident, been there a couple of years. I don't want to repeat stuff that's already been said. So I'd like to, I do want to underline the one comment that there's now 250 of us. All in, the average investment per house is at least $1 million. And in case of some of the others, it's $3 or $4 million. So we have $250 million invested. For much of the time that you guys and ladies have been listening to these various proposals to develop communities inside of Ranchera, there's nobody there. There's nobody there during COVID. There's nobody there during these traffic studies. Please make sure that you mandate another traffic study, because right now, almost any time of day, you come down Ranchera Parkway, past the shopping center there, and there's a line. There's a line to get out to Kitsky. There's a bottleneck. And I don't know, I haven't studied it, but I'm very fearful that any kind of emergency in this new community will be a disaster. I think emergencies in Quintero could also potentially be a disaster today. So the input that you get from us is different from the input you get from your staff. This is a very technical business that you're in, and we appreciate the job you're doing. I'd like to use the projector, if I could, for a second. It's an example of the process, the planning process. This is, thank you very much for putting all of your work papers online. This is from 2018, I'm sorry, not 19. And this is a modification to the Ranchera handbook. And it says building height might be modified, et cetera, very technical language. And if it doesn't work, then we'll mitigate whatever that means. Well, what this was done for was to allow the construction of these villas behind the mansion. And of course, it went through because there was no one there to oppose it. And now the villas are built, and any one of us, you can take any one of us up on our invitation, go take a look and tell me that the image of what we thought we were buying at Ranchera has not changed dramatically with the addition of these very tall structures. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right, we have 3 forms here in my hands. That all 3 are in opposition to the project, but also have stated they do not wish to make a statement. So I have Catherine Coffer, Carol Smith, and Richard Smith. Not wishing to make a statement, but they are in opposition. All right, Michelle, anybody on Zoom?
We did have a couple people register to speak. And I think they don't have their hands up, so I'm not sure if they still wish to speak. But we had David Wong. So we'll bring him in. David, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Did you wish to make public comment on this item?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I am in opposition to the development as it stands, and I am a Ranchera resident as well. There does need to be, as everybody has repeated, especially a new traffic study, because even as the traffic study that was done years ago stands, the current situation, as we see it as resident, is obviously far from satisfactory. My suggestion would be that that development requires access to Sierra Rose on the, I think it's the north side of it, so that there is access, better access into that development. That was something that I would like to propose. I'm not sure whether it's possible or feasible, but I think that is one possible solution. The issue that the Cantara residents have, I do totally sympathize. And if this development with the current flow of and the roads that's designed for the patio homes is, I think, a emergency problem, which I don't think has really been considered by the Planning Commission or the staff. I think you need to look at that a little bit more seriously, because with the density as it grows, I think the fire risks and emergency risks and the access to those for EMS so forth is actually very important. I think that's anyway, that's it. That's what I have to say. Thanks very much.
Thank you. We also have Danielle Alongi. I think she registered to speak. Oh, she's not there. Never mind. So she's not there. We have a voicemail that we'd like to play.
Please. Thank you.
My name is Marty McElhaney, and the case number is LTC24-00046, and it is Ranchera Village 7 project that's going before the Planning Commission. And my comments are that the project itself is a good project. We're concerned about the traffic that it will create, since everything's being routed onto Falabella, which is not a large road, wide road, and that there should be another exit from the subdivision, the new subdivision. There could easily go out on Sierra Rose, or they could easily go out where there's an existing access on Talbot before the Ranchera gate, and that we're concerned about it from a fire and life safety. If everybody's being funneled onto Falabella, that there'll be congestion and they'll be running or they'll be going down Doppelgray Way, which is not meant to have through traffic. And at least, if anything, if you could at least have all the construction traffic when they're doing it come off Talbot or Sierra Rose and not through the rest of the neighborhoods there, that would be very beneficial to the people currently living in Ranchera, because the roads just are not that big to handle large construction vehicles and equipment. So we're really striving to have another exit that doesn't come out on Falabella, either Talbot or Sierra Roads, and that's our biggest concern. Thank you.
Thank you as well. Michelle, any more Zoom?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Danielle Alongi, I believe. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we could hear you. You have 3 minutes to make your public comment.
Oh, fantastic. So, we're residents in Ranchera, and like some of the other community members have mentioned, one of our greatest concerns at this moment is just, the flow of traffic, the ingress, the egress for emergency vehicles and the like, and just making sure that now that the community here has so many residents, that perhaps a traffic study could be done currently to see what would be appropriate in terms of how many dwellings now, to just make sure that the flow of traffic is taken into consideration, as well as even parking. But certainly in the case of any kind of emergency vehicle or the necessity of fire trucks, ambulances, etc., that that the driveways and the streets that the houses are on now would even be able to accommodate that, much less the development growing. Those are concerns of ours, especially since there's at this moment kind of one way in and one way out of the community, just 2 points of entrance and exit. So that's really our concern as residents here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
That's it for public comment. We did receive correspondence and NAB comments. Those were forwarded to the Planning Commission and have been entered into the record. And I do not have any more requests to speak forms.
Okay, great. Would you like to speak, ma'am? All right. Have you filled out a request to speak form yet? Okay, when you're done, please do so. But come on up and state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Kathleen Miles, and I live in Cantera. I'm not going to go over the traffic. That's really been covered. But I will say these old studies need to be revisited, specifically grading and drainage. For example, at the foot of Dapplegrave Way and Camargue, we get, every time it rains or snows, we get a lake that's approximately 20 feet by, I'd say, 12 feet at least, because it goes past the halfway of the street. It's huge. And so all I say is, I guess I would say to the staff or whoever is doing this, that these old studies get updated. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you could fill out a form, thank you. Anybody else in the chambers wish to speak on this item? Seeing none, we will close public comment and go to the commissioners for questions of staff or the applicant. Commissioner Armstrong, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll start with staff. Good to see you, Leah. Okay, so how common is it, or is it common at all that studies would be revisited for a development like this that started the entitlement process some years ago? Like, do we have any examples of a traffic study being revisited when you get to a tentative map stage, for example? Like, is this something we've done as a city council, as a planning commission?
Thank you, Commissioner Armstrong. Leah Picotti for the record. I can't think of a time that this was done, but I do want to point out that for this particular development, our engineering staff did look at it and determined that an updated study was not warranted. We revisited that topic.
Sorry, when was
times.
that? When was it that engineering revisited it and basically said, yeah, there's no need for a new study?
It was during the review, so it would have been probably within the last 6 weeks.
Okay.
And because of all the public comment we received, we revisited that again and again, and we just couldn't find any way that we could warrant that study, because it's not going to come out with anything different than what's already there, being that there's a 77% reduction. And we do, I thought we did have the engineering manager here to speak on that topic, but maybe he's not here.
Yeah, and if I can chime in, Mike Raley, Planning Manager. When we look at those studies, we look at the assumptions that were made in the study. We've heard public comment that there's been other changes within the area. When that traffic was done, there's a regional model that accounts for basically projects that were approved but unbuilt that may have come online. So when engineering staff looked at the assumptions that were in the report based on the reduction in density, they did not require additional study. And Mike Michelle, our engineering manager, is here if you have any further questions.
Sure. No, that makes sense. I guess what I'm getting at is, and sorry, just to confirm, at the time these studies are done, they do contemplate the full range of the development. So I guess my point is this was always part of the analysis. It was always going to be this big of a project. This isn't new.
That is correct. Since I don't know that it was necessarily contemplated in the earlier renditions of the handbook from the 90s, but I can tell you that from 2014 on, yes, definitely.
Perfect. I guess that's the point I wanted to get across. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rohrmeyer. Oh, Commissioner Velto, please.
Hi. Yeah, so I have a few questions just generally about the PUD handbook. So the PUD handbook allows for 310 units. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
So this project could have been proposed to have 10 units,
Correct, yes, it would have allowed
but
for
they
either.
decided to go
Sorry,
20%
Commissioner
of that.
Balto, you're cutting out. We can't quite hear you.
I'm sorry. How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
We can hear you now.
Great. So I just want to be clear. So this project could have been proposed with 310 units, and instead they're proposing roughly 20% of that?
Correct, yes. Correct, yes.
So I kind of want to ask about the traffic. So the standard for traffic is that the project must mitigate traffic. What is your opinion as to how the project mitigates traffic?
Well, I think that the sorry, I'm getting some feedback. The mitigation for traffic was analyzed in that 2014 study and then updated again in 2018. Again, that study was contemplating development of the entire Ranchera. That's many more hundreds of units than what we're looking at right now. I don't know exactly what that is, and maybe Mr. Michel does, but this is just a tiny piece of that we're looking at. And then again, it's only like 20% of what was contemplated in that portion of the study, if that makes sense.
Sure, and I think that does make sense, but I guess I want to focus on this idea of they have an obligation to mitigate traffic, because it looks to me as if they could have designed the project as having all traffic come out on one road, as opposed to having multiple exits onto Flabalella. I'm forgetting the name of the road. But would you agree that that is an attempt to mitigate traffic by having multiple exits out of this complex?
Yes, I would agree, not just with Village 7 that mitigates traffic, but that because there are two accesses to Ranchera, that's another way to mitigate traffic altogether with those two. And I do realize that the gatehouse has been closed to guest traffic. I did run into that issue when I was there for a site visit yesterday. So yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Commissioner Armstrong, back to you.
This one's for the applicant. Either applicant. So originally, it would have been allowed up to 310 units. That, I presume, would have been a lot of density. You probably would have had to do something more like condos, correct?
Yeah, Eric Hasty for the record. Yes, that's correct. So there were a number of residential types of uses in here, and most likely to get that type of density, it would have been condos, condominium type of development.
So we could have had more density and basically 80% more units than we're seeing right now.
Yeah, and that's what originally was intended for this village, and that's why they had the setback requirements along the north and eastern boundary, because they intended for these buildings to be a lot much higher.
And is it fair to say that what you're proposing now actually conforms with the development in the area better than condos perhaps would have?
It's very reflective of the development that has been in Ranchera and surrounding neighborhoods.
Cool. Thank you.
Commissioner Rohrmeyer, please.
Yeah, Commissioner Rohrmeyer, questions for the applicant and maybe one for staff. So just given the amount of, public comment, I just wondered if anyone during neighborhood meetings or as part of meeting with staff, has anyone let the residents know that they can hire their own traffic consultant, independent of a developer or the city?
Eric Casey for the record. I do not believe so. We did not, to my knowledge, at the NAB meetings.
It seems there's a lot of specific concerns about the current situation and parking and congestion. I just want to put out that you may call Reno Direct, in the event of people parking on red curbs, that there's the availability of scientific and engineering professionals to hire to get an analysis of the current situation. And I wasn't sure if that was made clear during the planning process, that this is an option to the people who live there. Okay. But that's not the only question I have. I actually am interested in why was there a decrease in density? This is the core of Reno. This is a great project. And also with that, did anyone talk to the commercial businesses? It seems like the loss of 200 homes is a lot of walk-in traffic that could have been great for getting coffees. It could have been great for supporting the businesses that are right there in the village. And that this decrease in homes actually isn't that favorable to the businesses.
Yeah, thank you, Eric Hasty, for the record again. This, as it's been stated, this project has been approved for a number of years now, over a decade. And this was the original intent of Village 7, was to have this type of density. And, there just wasn't enough interest in the market. The market dictates everything, just like they were talking about with this mini storage thing. Same thing in this case. The one that's coming forward with this development now is the one that's made it this far because of the market conditions.
And specifically, was that market conditions for different housing type, or what smaller size units? Maybe you can give me a little clarity and the people clarity. Why the decrease in density? We need housing.
You wanna?
Hi, Andy Durling with Wood Rogers, also representing the applicant. So for this village, it is the last one. We have for many years now tested, I can't even count how many product types, how many residential product types we've tested on this, from, 3-4 story condominiums, as Commissioner Armstrong mentioned, that this could have been, right? That's the highest kind of and best use of it. We tested, triplexes, townhomes, all sorts of things. Unfortunately, there's just not, they weren't able to kind of match that with a builder, right? I mean, ultimately, we need a builder to come in and build that housing product, take the risk associated with that financial outlay to build these homes. And it was determined, after a lot of testing a different product and market research, that this in particular was, of significant interest to the market. It's pretty unique, this patio home concept, where, there's a handful of these types of communities around town, and they're very popular. The resale on them is very popular. A lot of this is kind of like a move down market, we anticipate, where, maybe retirees looking to kind of downsize from their larger lot into a still nice sized home, but without the maintenance responsibilities, right? This is kind of a very, plug and play, if you will, type of living situation, with everything around you being maintained by a common association.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Munoz, you want to chime in?
I don't have any questions, but when we're ready to jump into discussion, I'll get in.
Okay. Just on, I guess, a slight dive into what you were asking. I asked the same question about what product, why they didn't hit, and then parlaying that into me being a residential realtor, they're not wrong. This is going to be a popular product. I have a lot of folks, probably over the age of 50, want no yard maintenance, but don't necessarily want a townhome. So they're not wrong. I wasn't shocked when I heard that answer, which was, this is going to be popular. And I said, I know for a fact it will, just because I have people who would want this product, and it's rare on that side. So anyway, just some commentary from my personal life experience on that. So I guess I just shifted into discussion, unless anybody has any more questions. Commissioner Becerra?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Probably more benign question, since my fellow commissioners already did an excellent job. But maybe for staff, for Leah. I kid. It's actually for the applicant. I'm sorry, Leah.
No problem, I'm here if you need me.
Or either, yeah. Mr. Hasty, Eric. I believe one of the fellow commissioners mentioned this, or I think Leah spoke to this as well, about the Talbot Road and how she had maybe wanted to go through it, but then realized she can't go through it. Any reason why it needs to be closed off and everyone needs to go through, I think, what was it called, the Death of Row or something? Yeah.
Eric Hasty for the record. So if I understand your question correctly, there's proposed 2 entrances and points of egress into Ranchera, right? You have one that goes to Quacy and then one on Talbot. And that's what the whole traffic study, everything is based on that. So if any So every village is anticipated to be accessed internally from those exits or points of entry. And so with Falabella, we have those two access points onto there, which will help disperse some of the traffic along that.
Okay, so in other words, me as a guest, I can go through Talbot, or would I have to go through like closer to a Paren in that region?
Andy Durling, for the record. We as the applicant's representative, not aware of any closures, but if I can kind of ascertain from what the public comment was, it sounds like, and my total assumption here, that maybe they are not manning that gate for guests, but residents have clicked to enter. So residents are able to use that gate. So guests are being maybe routed to the Kitski entrance, essentially. So that is kind of the main entrance for club people that are going to the club, things like that. So that may be the case right now, but residents, I would fully assume, have full access through that gate.
Okay, thank you, Andy. And then maybe Andy or Eric on this one. There was a comment about traffic kind of under the current neighborhoods where only a Model T, if you will, can go through, and and so I was kind of wondering why the design is so narrow that two modern-sized cars couldn't go both ways. And I'm not talking like Cybertruck width. I'm just talking average car width. Right?
Sure. So yeah, all the roadways in Ranchera are designed to meet code. And by code, I mean, essentially, fire code, right? I mean, there obviously needs the ability for fire trucks to make it through these. So from a life safety standpoint, the fire department, police department even, review all of these tentative maps. The minimum roadway widths that we have in Ranchera comply with the fire code. And so, in Village 6, which is just to the south of us, yes, they have narrow roadways. It does accommodate for 2 cars with no parking on the street. A lot of the streets in Ranchera are narrower for a few different reasons. One, we really were trying to encourage slower speeds. If we drive around, most of the roadways through there are signed for 15 miles an hour, which, your normal local street is 25 miles an hour. So there was really a concerted effort to, make the streets narrower, make them slower speeds, not have a lot of parking on them. All the streets in Ranchera are private streets, so they're not maintained by the city. They're maintained by the homeowners association. So, overall less maintenance for the homeowners association over time. And so where we do have those narrower streets, we did, try to strategically locate additional parking throughout. As was, shown on the overhead, and I don't know if we can bring up our presentation. I just wanted to point out, one of the public comments said we only had maybe 6 parking spaces. That's not correct. I'll go to this one, and does the mouse work? Sorry, no, mouse isn't working. So you'll notice, there's a number of little parking pockets that are provided off of kind of the main street there. But if you look a little closely into each of the alleys, each of those alleys has 2 parking spaces at the end of the alley. So, all those homes, say along the northern boundary there at the top of the screen, they'll have 2 parking spaces in their garage, and then there's additional 2 parking spaces that would be shared between those 2 units. Thanks for zooming in. And then if you look at, some of the other alleyways there's a number of little parking spaces that we tried to incorporate into the alleys themselves to make it convenient, so that parking wasn't, located in a parking lot on one side of the development. It's located and dispersed throughout for convenience. Yeah, you can kind of see the little striped spaces in each of those alleys.
Great, thank you, Andy. And just to follow up on that, the theme of traffic, there was some input about construction traffic kind of cutting through existing neighborhoods and all. If that's the case, would you all be amenable to just guiding construction traffic elsewhere?
Yeah, I would anticipate construction traffic for this is going to use Falabella. It would, and yes, we can kind of have that educational aspect of, for the contractors as part of this. As homeowners move in and have, things done to their homes, there may be contractors that are pulling up on the curb. We really can't, this developer really can't do much about that. That's an HOA issue that they probably need to enforce.
Great, thank you, Andy.
You bet.
Yep.
All right, looks like we might want to move into discussion. Commissioner Munoz.
Thank you, Commissioner Munoz, for the record. So I kind of want to reiterate the sentiments of the lower density. We are in a huge housing crisis in Reno, in Nevada, Northern Nevada as a whole. And at the same point, and at the same time, I do understand the frustration of the traffic. I also understand that this isn't a brand new plan. This has been planned out for years now. The residents, when they did purchase these homes, knew there was a possibility of 310 units being built there. Maybe it's hard to foresee the way the traffic is going to affect when people actually live there, but this isn't a new development. This is something we've been dealing with. It's something that's been coming up for years. And I don't see that changing, and I don't see us having the ability to modify this project to make it not have these issues. So the way it stands now, I would like to see a little bit more density, but I do understand the reasoning behind it. It does make sense to me, and I do agree with this. So I will be supporting this project. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Commissioner Armstrong.
Thank you, Chair. I largely agree with Commissioner Munoz. I'm not quite as fussed as the lower density. I just understand the economic environment. I think it would be really challenging to go with the original vision. It is a bit disappointing, but I'm happy to see that there is still development planned for that area and that they found a solution, because we do have a housing crisis, and it's important that we continue to address that. I also agree this has been a project that's been around for a decade, and I think when you purchase in a new development, it's reasonable to assume that more development is going to come online, especially when it gets approved for over 700 units. So I'll also be supporting this project, and I can make the findings.
Commissioner Draculich, I get the traffic concerns. I've driven through all that a dozen times, especially with construction going. It's a nightmare when the construction is going on the new homes, but that does come to an end at time, and I respect your frustration during that. So I don't have much that really can be done for that. I think they've done enough here. But on the parking, I actually thought this was very ample to have 3 per unit. I don't see this subdivision or this village to actually have more than 2 cars per building. I don't really see this yielding 2 adults and 2 kids with cars. I mean, maybe there'll be some exceptions to that, but I think parking is more than adequate for each unit. So that's my take. I will be supporting this project. And seeing no other discussion. Oh, Commissioner Rohrmeyer, please.
Yeah, I do have some discussion. I'm really disappointed at the decrease in density, not only for the fact that Reno is short on housing supply, but also for the long-term sustainability for the village, which is an asset to not only Ranchera, all of Reno. I mean, people really seek that out as a place to eat and gather. So that's a little disappointing. I understand the market shifted, and these are the considerations that have to be made. The urban design of Village 7 is highly car-centric. I don't personally like when I see half the site devoted to surface transportation and half the site devoted to slabs. Feels very sort of auto-dependent. And I don't think that was the goal of Ranchera. Its intention was to like walkable and get people in their car, out of their cars and on their bikes and on their feet. I also didn't appreciate the misalignment of some of those hammerheads. I think that could be cleaned up maybe as you go to final map or go back to the office, but that's easy to do. Those K-turns and hammerheads can be inconvenient, but maybe they'll encourage more pedestrian activity instead, so I'm gonna be optimistic. And yeah, I just would encourage the neighbors, residents, if you will. This project is planned, and it's planned for a lot more density, and it's come before us, so I'm going to support it. But I also encourage you to empower yourselves. You seem highly organized. You're here tonight, and I appreciate that. And I'd encourage you, you have the power to hire professionals to represent yourselves. Don't just always rely on developers. or the city, or even the planning commission to represent everybody's interest. It's very hard to have the actual knowledge, having not lived there myself. So thank you for coming tonight.
Commissioner Becerra, please.
Sure, I'll just keep mine brief. Just echo Commissioner Rohrmeyer, Draculage, Armstrong, the rest of the body's sentiments. I'll be in support. I think it's good to have these conversations to highlight these growing pains, and hopefully we pivot and address those over time. Because what we plan for today, for tomorrow, for next year is not necessarily what's always going to happen, because the economy changes or life just happens. But it's good to have these conversations so we can be informed and pivot as we need to. So I'll be in support.
Great. And if someone wants to deliver a motion?
Commissioner Belto, I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
In the matter of case number LDC 24-00046, based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the tentative map subject to the conditions listed in the staff report, and I can make all the findings.
Could you include the addition of condition number 15 in your motion?
My apologies, with the addition of condition number 15. Thank you for the reminder, Michelle.
All right, we have a motion.
Commissioner Armstrong, I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Good luck with your project.
Could
Thank all
you
for
read the appeal process into the record, please?
coming. Oh, of course. Yeah, 1 second. Where's the appeal? Appeal process. Any final action not including recommendations or failure to take action by the Planning Commission may be appealed to the Reno City Council by the applicant, the mayor, or a city council member, or any person who is aggrieved by the action or inaction. An appeal, together with fees, must be filed with the city clerk within 10 business days starting on the day after written notice of the action is filed with the city clerk. All right.
Thank you.
You bet. We will now move on to item number 6, Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Liaison Report. And folks, if you guys don't mind moving your conversation to the lobby, that'd be great. Yeah, you're fine. Who we got? Oh, Commissioner Rohrmeyer.
Commissioner Rohrmeyer, we had a meeting last Thursday, and in that we heard one case for a transition from Tier 3 to Tier 2, just to the southeast of Collin Ranch, or southwest of Collin Ranch. And then we got an update on the natural resources plan and the infrastructure plan, which will be forthcoming in the regional plan in the fall.
Thank you so much. Closing item 6. Moving on to item 7, staff announcements. Mike, go.
No staff announcements this evening.
Excellent. Moving on to item 8, commissioner suggestions for future agenda items. Seeing none, we'll close item 8. Move to item 9, public comment. This item is for either public comment on any action item or for any general public comment. Michelle, request to speak form, Zoom, voicemails.
I did not receive any requests to speak forms, no voicemails, no correspondence, and it doesn't appear that we have anybody on Zoom that wishes to speak.
Anybody in the chambers wish to speak on general public comment? Seeing none, we'll close item 9, public comment. Moved on to item 10, adjournment.
So moved.
So moved.
All right. Thanks, y'all.
Second.
Have a nice night, y'all.
Goodbye, everybody.